Folks, welcome back to Brew Time. This week we've got Neil Barron here from Liteloks. Any bikers out there, any cyclists out there, you're going to have heard of Liteloks. They are reputedly the world's best security locks. So, Neil, how are you?
Hi, Bruce. Yeah, really good. Thanks. A little bit warm. It's nice to see the sun out for a change, and obviously people out on their bikes, which is what everybody wants, really, for loads of reasons.
So, have you been stuck in your office? Have you been locked in the office, so to speak?
A little bit. Yeah. I am the boss, so I can kind of slip out and do things, but they're often rushed, like everything, because I'm a bit time poor. But I'm not going to grumble.
Do you find that? I found that, like, I lived on my bike before this became my job. And my life. I lived on my bike. I commuted in and out to work every day on it. Every moment I wasn't at work or had anything to do, I was out on my bike. Now it's actually my job.
Yeah.
I'm probably out maybe a couple of days a month, maybe. I actually get the chance to go out on a bike outside of like my tours and stuff that I do. Are you the same?
I get the opportunity to borrow bikes, which is I've only just worked out in the last few years, which I didn't. I was just a bit dumb and thinking, oh yeah, let's just find somebody with a bike. And what you actually can do is say to people, can I borrow your bike? Because I'd like to do some content, or we'd like to try out some locks or whatever. And so in the last few years, I've had a nice little stream of bikes to borrow, which then means that you ride them because you've borrowed them, and you've got to get the content, and and the rest of it. I've done things like I noticed on one of your YouTube videos recently, you had a drone in the background on your shelf. Mm-hmm. There's a sequence on our website with me on a GS on a 1250, and being followed around by a drone near where I live, which is a beautiful part of the world, right on the end of the Gower Peninsula, and it's really kind of hilly but that was like -4 that day.
Wow.
On a loaner bike. With the film crew going, can you do it again? Can you do it again?
The joys of
filming.
Cool,
it was really cool. They do an amazing job of capturing it and flying it, and they had to get permission and all the rest of it, and it's near an airfield. But those are the perks, I would say, and they're not all the time, but they're an excuse to get on the bike. This morning, I actually was going along in basically a company van with my bike in the back, and I saw a really good opportunity to take some pictures. This is with a bicycle. Last week I had a motorcycle in it, so I'll just whip out, do some photo. I mean, I'm not a content person, but if I've got a bit of an eye, so I will try and capture things, so it's an excuse, quite frankly, and you know what it's like. So, but I don't. I often need some kind of vehicle to carry stuff. So actually, bike to work is not always the best for me. And I live sort of 18 miles away from the factory. Mm-hmm. So it's actually quite a time when I often talk on the phone, and one of my fellow director is actually in Australia, and which is convenient. He's in Sydney, and we often have quite important conversations early in the morning. Or in the night, and you probably can't do that on a motorcycle.
What you need to get is the old Cardos. Plug.
Absolutely, yeah.
Neil, your mic. I think you're going to have to bring your mic a little bit closer to your mouth because the audio keeps cutting out. I think because it's looking for that audio source, so you need to bring the mic if you can. Just bring it next to your mouth.
You're not worried about the video, are you?
No, not at all. Not at all. Just like how I have. You see how I have my mic right in the shot?
Yeah, so is that okay?
It should be perfect. Sound? Yeah, fine. Right? All good. Because otherwise, there's probably, initially when you were talking, it would sort of catch a little bit and then drop out, or it would miss the first couple of words and then drop out. Right, folks, you're back. We've sorted that, hopefully. So the audio should be tip-top now. You were saying there about... you were just driving around with a push bike in the back, and you saw this opportunity for content.
Yeah, it was a high tide actually, and the boats were just floating up in an estuary which normally looks a little bit kind of short of water, and so I just stopped, and there were actually some Welsh water vans. So just sitting there, obviously having a break. And I still thought I was mad because I went and took this bike out the back, locked it up, and then took some photographs, did a few kind of swooshy video things with my phone, and then got back in and drove away again. And they must have just thought, what is that guy doing?
Yeah. The thing is, people are used to it nowadays, aren't they? Like, even say 5 years ago, 6 years ago or something, they maybe not 6 years. Certainly I remember sort of 2016, 2017, when I really started properly weekly on YouTube, just standing there with a camera, talking to a camera out in public. Like, even then people were just like, who's this idiot? What's going on here? You know, but now everyone's doing it, aren't they? People have tripods set up in gyms and all sorts of things.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was listening to the last episode with Mike Morgan from MMP.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, I think you were talking about hacking your camera so you can use it as a webcam and all of this stuff. But if you want to work out to do something, you just go onto YouTube and you can find it. And so absolutely. All the, the kind of rigs that are based around phones, and it's incredible, actually. Absolutely incredible what can be done now. So
I mean, the technology that's in your phone now, just the camera itself, that camera is way better than the DSLR I've got sat up there that I bought sort of 2016. This thing's amazing now, and you can just carry it around in your pocket.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. Do you have a tipple of choice for the evening?
I do. Well, I hope you're not going to give me abuse for this, but I've got peppermint tea.
No problem at all. No worries. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, a bit of hydration and whatever. But
absolutely. Well, Slange, here's to your health.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Nice to meet you.
And you, likewise. So, Neil, let's get down to it then. So, Liteloks, can you tell us a little bit about Liteloks, but more importantly, how did you get into bikes? What brought you along this path to get you to where you are now with Liteloks? Go.
Yeah, there's quite a lot in that actually, but I'll try and break it down. So, my original background was I was trained as an engineer. So I did aeronautics and astronautics at university, which is really cool because you can say it's not rocket science to people. And I worked for Rolls-Royce aircraft engines. So they gave me the most incredible training of engineering and technology, which I'll be honest with you, I'm still drawing on it because it's aerospace. It's miles ahead of things that might be going on in consumer products. So actually, a lot of the engineering I was doing didn't make sense to me maybe at the time, but then years and decades later, suddenly it's relevant. Anyway, so so I'll give you a quick bit of my background and then talk about bikes. So I worked for Rolls-Royce for a while, and then I decided that actually I wanted to develop whole products. And I realized that in a big company, it's not really the way it works. So I guess that I started to get interested in innovation and design and creation of the whole thing. And so I left my engineering job and I went to art college, which much to my parents' kind of dismay at the time, they're like, what are you doing? And I ended up doing another 2 degrees. I ended up at the Royal College of Art in London, which you might know is very famous kind of only postgraduate course. And I ultimately ended up as a visiting professor there, which was really, really cool, on a program between Royal College of Art and Imperial College in London. So huge, like 30,000+ students, less than 1,000 students, a course which just took international people from all over the place, all kinds of backgrounds, trained them to be innovators. And I basically never left, really, because I became a tutor and so on. And at the same time, I ran an innovation consultancy and design consultancy. Right the way through all of this, I was riding bikes. And I've had 3 bikes stolen in my time. Those have all been pedal bikes, touch wood. And so I know what it's like to have something stolen. I actually couldn't believe it. 2 of them, I literally didn't believe what had happened. Thought I'd made a mistake and where I'd left them. And from an early age, I'm one of those people that, and there'll be loads of people out there of my kind of age thinking the same thing. My parents wouldn't let me have a motorcycle when I was young because they were too dangerous, right? So what I did, and I haven't fessed up to this, I don't think to anyone too much, but some of my friends had enduros, and they were the thing that I really wanted. So do you remember like RDs and DTs and all those kind of bikes, sort of scrambly type bikes? And I really wanted one of these. And one day my father came home, bless him, with a bike in the back of his camper van, saying, well, I've got your bike. It might not be what you want. And he got it out, and I'm like, trying to be polite. It was now actually, this is kind of cool. It's become cool. It was a Honda step through C50. The kind of, it's actually got, I think it's got no clutch. So you kick the gears through, or, well, I did anyway. So that was my kind of first bike, and I was hugely disappointed with what it was. So what I did was I didn't tell him that. But I actually started rebuilding it, and I tried to make it into, I literally took a hacksaw to it. I just cut bits off it. I absolutely butchered it. But now if you look on, I'm sure you've seen that there's a whole load of Honda Cubs and those kind of bikes that are used off-road or custom, and they're really cool. And I was trying to do that back in actually the 80s. And so I never actually passed my test at that point. I just fiddled around with bikes and just rode them wherever I could. And then that bug kind of went into the background a bit. I went off to university and all that. And then when I ended up in London, I was cycling back and forth to work, and a friend of mine was riding a motorcycle all the time. And I was like, I've got to scratch the itch. I've done all these degrees. And so I thought, right, the next challenge for Barron is I'm going to do my motorcycle test. And I'm going to pass it straight away. I'm going to do it really well. And I did. I was really good. I was so pleased. I could tell you, it was almost like it was the most important thing I'd ever done at the time. And I got myself initially, it's back in the days when you get a full license and it would just let you ride anything.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
And I got myself an MTX 125 Honda. So I got my Enduro. It was only a little one, right? And that was the most comfortable bike I've ever had. And I rode that around to London for ages. No problem at all. And then I'll accelerate the story quickly, because I then, like, the only new bike I've ever bought was actually and again, I fell in love with this. So at the time in the 90s, I've got a design consultancy, my own business. So I'm struggling away, usual thing. And I want to get around. And it was a time when, do you remember when Ducati Monster was massive? So Ducati Monster in the city was really cool. First kind of naked bike. I didn't get one of those. I actually got the sort of other side of the coin, which people were either this or this. And it was the early KTM Duke 620 single.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically a Duke 2. Now, this, you won't believe this now, so that was my first ever brand new bike. I rode it around in this, Bar Italia and all the rest of it.
How long till you flipped it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I bought another one. So I bought one recently. I've gone into that kind of age thing where you're like, I just want to go back and do that again.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm riding now. So I've got one that looks exactly the same as my original one. That's all, road legal and everything else, and that's what I ride. Because where I live is some really lovely kind of sweeping roads, which really nice views and stuff. It's just awesome.
Yeah,
very uncomfortable though, and it's not a touring. What I would love is a bike that you can go long distance on. That's the next thing.
Yeah. Have you still got the Honda, the step through? Did you keep it?
No, I wish I had. I don't know what happened to it. Unfortunately, my parents have a habit of clearing out my stuff, like my old skateboard that I made from scratch. I went back and went, have you got that skateboard where I'd saved all my money up for the trucks and, I made the deck and everything? It's gone.
Yeah.
So same thing with the step through, but very cool. I mean, I can remember making my own throttle for it.
Wow.
So, early days of invention for me, I didn't have any money at all. So I'd make stuff, just make it. And the throttle had some problems, and I thought, I'm going to make another one. So a real bodge, but kind of worked.
Did the job. You said you had the design consultancy in the 90s. What sort of sector was that in? So
really diverse. So actually, it kept going. It's sort of like pretty much dormant now, but there's probably the biggest thing that nobody knows I ever did so we did some packaging. We did stuff for Body Shop, which was quite cool. Really like consumer facing, but still sustainable. And if you go and buy vitamins in Boots, the little bottle with a round lid on the top, have you seen that? So if you buy vitamin C or something, I designed that. So in the sort of early 2000s, it's probably my highest volume product by miles.
Wow.
And the brief was, needs to be a premium product, largely older women buy it. Nobody understands which vitamins are which. So what we did is we put the vitamin on the cap, we rearranged the whole thing, and we made it easy to open. So it's actually based around your hands. So my kind of design is very kind of reductive. So trying to get simple execution. I always say to people that actually it's easy to make something complicated, but to reduce it down to simplicity is actually a lot of work, and you have to try really hard to do it. So I did that. I also did the other end of the spectrum. I did some crazy cool stuff. So having the opportunity to ride bikes now, I also play the guitar, and I had a brilliant job, which was Intel. So they make obviously technology and chips and stuff. Wanted to try and communicate this is the emergence of Wi-Fi and putting data everywhere and everything else. And their chips are inside computers and nobody could really see it. And they just wanted to make some PR things, basically. So I got two jobs off the back of each other. One was guitars with Fender. And I went to the Fender factory and I developed a Telecaster with a recording studio in the back of it.
Wow.
And made it. And we made, I can't remember how many we made. It might have been 10, something like that. And my business is only tiny, but nobody would machine it. So I had to do it. So I had to do machining, the designing, the making. And we were talking about interference on the microphone earlier. And one of the biggest challenges was this is pre-iPad. We basically put something like an iPad into the back of a computer and then connected it up to all of the pickups and stuff and had to work out how to stop the interference. And I found, again, this is like a bit of a history of solving things that are a bit tricky, found a material that would block out called mu metal, which I'd never heard of, just found it and it worked. And we made these things. But of course the client was just like, well, it's just got to work. Just make it work.
Yeah. Make it work.
And then off the back of that, the reason I live where I live is I surf. And I did warn you, by the way, that I can talk a bit.
Don't worry about it. No, it's good.
You set me off.
These are the episodes I love. Go. Yeah.
Good. So I also surf, and there's a reason I live where I live is because of surfing. We live near the sea, and when I lived in London, I am from Wales, so I'm from up the coast, but we were commuting up and down and going surfing, and it was kind of like, well, why don't we just go and live there? Crazy kind of thing. Commuted for a few years. Anyway, the next job that came along was actually a surfboard. You can't believe this. And these are just plum. It's so lucky. A surfboard for Intel with loads of technology inside it that had to work. So then I got to meet all the pro surfers. I went and I Wi-Fi'd Floyd Beach in Devon with my little team. And we had this pro surfer on it, went out, does it leak? And it didn't leak. And I was the most amazed by that. And it all worked and it came back to the Wi-Fi and it's the opposite of what you do when you go surfing. You don't want to be connected, but the idea was that it was just to communicate the thing. So very diverse consultancy. I learned loads of skills. So I had this engineering background, I had design, and then I'd got involved with brand. So just to wrap this together is when it came to coming into Liteloks, and I'll explain that maybe in a minute, my skills ended up all being useful, if you see what I mean. So we've actually built a brand and we've had to do communication. We've had to make demonstrators and films, but also make engineering prototypes and develop a product that people actually want and solves their problem. So it is almost like the culmination of a whole load of things I've ever done, which is really cool. I can't complain about that.
You're obviously a very creative person, but you have you can see it straight away when you're talking. You obviously have this creative side, but this very logical side. And often you find creative, artistic people, they're incredibly expressive, but they tend not to be like logical in like the mechanical sense, and the two extremes almost. But you plainly have both of those abilities.
Thank you. But Bruce, I think people, unfortunately, it's a bit of a curse because people are suspicious and they just want to put you in the box. So you're the designer that just cares about how things look.
Yes.
Or you're the engineer.
Yeah.
You just care about how things work. You have no idea how to make them sell. And what I actually am is I've become, anyway, I've learned how to do this is I am a CEO. I'm driving a business, but I'm also inventing. And when people ask me, how do you describe yourself? I often now say, this is the easy way. And it's also, I think, quite good. I'm an inventor. So I am an inventor. I invent stuff. I make stuff that actually works, that then you can exploit and there's a problem and you can create a business. The fact is that before Liteloks, I was actually doing this for everybody else. And I had a moment of, I was doing these water dispensers for a lovely company in England, and I was going up and down to their business, and I watched their business go from like this shack to this huge warehouse, and it was full of my products that I designed, and I literally designed them all, and they were awesome to work with. I love doing it, and it's the same thing. But I was actually creating their business for them, and they were doing the commercial side, of course. I wasn't doing any of that, but the opportunity to do both things. So I'm really proud of the fact that I'm sitting now in this factory, which is a solar powered factory. So we have 50 kilowatts of solar on the roof that powers our electric van, that actually powers all of our machines. And I'm perfectly comfortable flitting from, let's talk about this color, to, oh my God, what about HR? We've got to sort this issue out, or a contract or something. And I love it, but people are really skeptical, and they're like, how can you possibly love all of that?
Stay in your lane. Yeah.
Get out of your, exactly. And I think the world's changing, Bruce, honestly. I think that education, I told you about the Royal College of Art program. It's called Innovation Design Engineering. That's a classic, but there are loads of these now that take people and say, well, actually, not everybody's the same, but we can actually all have, different sides to us and different combinations of skills. And it's pretty common for the sort of younger generation now to not see one career pathway. They actually, like I did, I went through, and they've all built into one thing in the end.
Yeah.
I didn't know that as I was going along, Now people are actually actively going and just doing different things, and actually, what is it? Your slogan?
Live your life. Yeah.
Live your life. And I do feel like live your life is the number one thing if you can. And if you can do, and this is what my father taught me, if you can do what you love every day, and I get up every day and I love what I'm doing. There are moments where I'm struggling and it's hard and there's stuff to deal with and you don't stop thinking about it. There isn't anything better than and you're the same. I know your story with the police and so on, but you're doing something you love. You've created it. It's yours.
Yeah.
It's going to have times where you're thinking, geez, what have I done? But
it's a roller coaster, isn't it? But that's life.
But people don't realize that, and people don't know how hard some things are. But at the end of it, if you can try and it's easily said, because I'm not always doing this, by the way, if you can sort of step back from it and do the, what does he call it, helicopter view, and actually go, well, hang on, it'd be better if we did this, this, and this. Then I think, anyway, I'm rambling. Sorry.
No, it's stuff that fascinates me, because I'm going through this journey now as we speak, and I've been doing this sort of self-employed full-time life now for 4 odd years, and obviously I come from the polar opposite, working for the man, working for the government, where you didn't have to worry about being paid because you were always paid every month, no matter what. The business didn't matter how many people you arrested, didn't matter how many things you dealt with, you just got paid. It happened. Didn't matter if you were sick, didn't matter if you got injured, you got paid. Totally different when you're self-employed, isn't it? If you don't put the graft in, like if you're not always putting in the graft in, like doing the socials to market yourself, if you're not producing the content, if you're not on the top of your game all the time, you see almost instant results. And that can be financially as well. You know, if the views drop, your payment from YouTube drops. If people lose interest in you, you don't get merch sales, the Patreon side of things drops off. I do tours, you know,
absolutely.
all impact.
And the other thing though, is that you might not see an effect immediately. So you might be, what you're doing now might actually impact what you're going to do and what your business is going to do in a little while, and that's quite tough. I don't think anybody that hasn't run a business really has any idea. And I having been through a lot of real big stuff over the years, properly trying to scale something, people are saying, what you're doing is really hard. And I don't see it like that. And I've also been told, by the way, by one of our investors that I'm a risk taker. And I didn't even know I was. I genuinely didn't. I wouldn't, if you'd have said, are you a risk taker? But he was saying you're clearly a risk taker. It's made me think of, putting the old, get the chips across the table. But sorry, what was I saying? I've completely lost my thread. Apologies.
You were saying about being a risk taker in business. Well, what were we talking about?
I think I was sort of getting it. If you stopped and thought about it for a minute, you might actually not do it.
Yeah, and everything that you have to deal with.
Yeah, and things are hard, and you do them. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Sorry, this was leading somewhere, which was whenever people say somebody so and so has built a business, and everybody always builds the story around. And I'm quite interested in listening to podcasts about this, by the way, and hopefully other people find my story interesting. But there's this thing of like, oh, it must have been quite easy for them. They had some money, or something happened, or it never is. It's always a nightmare at some point. Whether they choose to tell people about that nightmare or not is the question. Yeah. And how they dealt with it is the other thing. But I have the utmost respect for anybody that's built anything, whether it's a coffee shop, anything that works for them. Absolute respect. And it takes it takes 100% of you. And it has, but it's also fulfilling. And I think our world is now more full of these kinds of people than it was when I was running a business back in the day. Yeah. It really is. It's like people are empowered. I think COVID did something for a start. It made people stop and go, well, actually, what do I want to do? And we saw it. We couldn't get any people to work in the factory at one point. People were just like, oh, I'm not going to do this. And
it made people sit back and address the work-life balance, didn't it? Because certainly here in the UK, certain lines of people were just totally focused on work. They're throwing everything at work to the extent where you're hardly ever home. Yes. Like I know people who were commuting 2 or 3 hours each way to go and then do a 12-hour shift at work. And you're like, what's the point of knocking your pan in like that for 20, 30 years? And then when you start, you're just going to fall over and, you'll keel over as soon as you retire. We'd see it all the time. It's like, live your life, enjoy the life. Yeah. You've got to get that balance. There's something when you were chatting there, you must get it. I get it all the time from people that say, oh, you're so lucky for what you've done. I quite fancy doing what, like bike tours. People go, oh, I really fancy setting up some bike tours. How'd you get into it? What do you need to do? And like, I'll help people as much as I possibly can. But, you feel like saying, this isn't an overnight thing. I've been doing them since 2008. I've literally not done 40-odd thousand miles a year to try and get the experience of different roads, of traveling, of taking my mates out year upon year upon year. And, and then with the YouTube channel, you're like, I've been doing this over 10 years. It's not an overnight thing. I am fortunate, and we are fortunate to do things that we love, but I am a firm believer in the fact that you make your own path, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do, be realistic with what you're capable of doing, and then figuring out your path in order to attain that and achieve it. I really do think it's all down to you and grasping those opportunities when they present themselves.
My favorite, I totally agree. My favorite quote is Louis Pasteur, who said, chance favors the prepared mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I try to operate, or that's how I kind of make sense of what I do is if you're completely immersed in what you do, you will see the chances is that the opportunities come. You can't just dip in and out of something. It just doesn't work. You won't, you might get lucky once or twice, but that's why everybody that makes anything substantial, whatever that means to them, actually is fully in and immersed in it. And I think that you do get breaks though. Like I was saying to you, having surfboards and guitar jobs coming along. I can't imagine anything more. I had another one at the time. I loved Guinness. Job for Guinness. It was awesome. I met in a Guinness bar in Soho and got briefed, and we had a 3-week project. We made these. Do you remember the surfer ad?
Yeah.
So we got the script for that before it was made, and it was like this big thing, and we want to promote it. And this is another PR kind of job. But we made these. I can remember most of this. It's a little while ago. But, the beer takes, I think it's 112 and a half seconds to pour and to settle. So they wanted something for the person to do while they're waiting for their beer that would promote Guinness. So we made, again, another perfect job. We made these little surfers that were credit card kit. There was a stainless steel photo etch one. There was a surfer, and you snapped him out with a little fin on his back foot, a balsa wood board. You put it together. It took you just under 2 minutes. You put it on your pint. You drank your pint, and the surfer just surfed the top of them. So we made this, and we did it from concept from the pub to the final delivery of thousands of units in 3 weeks. It's awesome. Brilliant. Sorry, that was a diversion, but I just remembered that.
But again, that's an opportunity where you could have gone down the line of, holy shit, Guinness. Yes, God, that's way out. I can't deal with that. That's way above our level. But you didn't. You took the punt. You went for it. And I think that's the difference, isn't it, between those that wish and those that do. You just have
But
to
the
go
other
for
thing
it.
is that when you see the final thing, you don't realize that actually there was lots of work that went into it. There were loads of prototypes, even though it was 3 weeks. It was the same process we go through in developing a new lock technology that might take years.
Yeah.
But we just accelerated it. And at the end of it, like I said at the beginning, it's easy to make complicated things. It's hard to make simple things that are reductive. And this is where good motorcycles or good bicycles, when they're really good and they're really integrated and they work well, are actually a marvel of teamwork and engineering. There's an awful lot in that machine. And to get it to market, I know what all that means now, particularly owning a business and having to go, well, we need 10,000 of these or 3,000 of those, or we've got this problem, we need to join this to this, whatever it is. That is multiplied up in something like a motorcycle. And then you've got riders at the end going, oh, I wish this was a bit so-and-so, and, which is fine. It is fine because that's actually the feedback you need.
Yeah.
But you think, well, it's a marvel. Engineering is a marvel of kind of human effort, really.
It made me smile when you said about it's easy to make complicated things, but it's very hard to make simple things, good things that are simple. Yes. I always remember I did a civil engineering degree at uni, and we had to work quite closely with the architecture students at times on various different projects. And the tutors and things on the civil engineering side were just not dismissive of architects, but they were just like, wait till you see some of the design concepts they're going to come out with. You're like, they'll look amazing, but you'll be like, how the hell do you build that? Like floors just levitating in the middle of nowhere with, it's just like, how have they done that? But it's interesting listening to you talk, because obviously you've got the artistic, creative side of your brain, but then you also have the aerospace, aeronautical, the engineering side that allows you to think up these beautiful designs, the concepts, but also the engineering brain's going, okay, well, how do we make that a reality then? So there's a nice marry of the two sides.
Yeah, and I think you're right, but I think what actually happens is it flips in a cycle, and you actually go round and round and round. You go, well, actually, we want this, but how do we make it? Or we can make this. So what's the potential? What could we, could it become? Yeah. And there's also a bit of a curse, because with a technology like Baronium, which is our angle grinder resistant technology, you can imagine how many things can you think of where that could be beneficial, right? And then you know, my job as well as a CEO is to actually go, right, we're focused. We need to make this. We've got to make X number of these things. Everybody likes these, so let's make these. And I'm just thinking, but you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. So I find myself, and again, I have got, I wouldn't say luxury of this. It's not really luxury. It's permission to create strategic things. And I've got, so everybody that knows me will know that I have, wherever I am, I have an office full of stuff that's like brimming, and I know where everything is. But I've got little secret things going on that are just, you know, quietly just doing stuff. And people are like, oh, so what did you do? And it's quite weird in a business like this, because actually I'm always working on the next thing. And it might be that actually it's a dead end. So I don't involve everybody or sometimes anybody in all of it, because actually there's risk in that. So, and also, you know, you kind of want to keep it confidential until it's ready to have more people's input. So I can remember doing one lock not very long ago, and got it to a certain point, and the engineers are firing and they're getting it, really making it better and better. And it's really cool. And then I'm coming to all these meetings. Then they're a little bit like, you don't seem like you're doing something else, aren't you? And I was working on X, which is the angle grinder locks. And I just didn't tell anyone. So I'm just doing it. But with like big support, with like government support and working with universities and all that, but just in the business, quietly doing it. Because of course you can't have everybody working on everything, because then you end up with chaos and no focus. And you've got to be able to, in manufacturing, you've got to be able to make things, and you've got to make them effectively and sell them, you know, to keep afloat.
Yeah.
So I do find it almost mildly amusing, of like my secret little briefcase of something in there. And I've got these little cases. I love those little cutouts of shadow board things of, you know, not allowed to look in there. But you know, that's my sort of James Bond kind of side, I guess.
How do you deal with relinquishing control of certain aspects of the business? Like I'm asking because this is something I really struggle with. I am a control freak. I'm having to learn that I need help with the editing. You know, like I'm away so much now with my tours that I just physically don't have the time to sit and edit a lot of the time. So as luck would have it, my son's actually a professional editor. So I'm trying to have him do a little bit of work for me. But even that, you know, I find it really hard to relinquish that control and just let him do his thing. How do you deal with that with your companies?
Well, I think you people, what's the expression? People earn trust. And I think that you have to work with somebody long enough, even if it's your son. And because you trust your son because he's your son, but trust professionally, I mean. To actually know that somebody can do what you need them to do. And then they need a bit of your time just saying, look, I say to everybody, I've made all the mistakes. Let's not make all the mistakes again. Right? I've learned from the mistakes. So all I'm going to do is just say to you, oh, look, don't do that, because I tried to do that. And, you know, so there's a bit of that. There is the other thing, which is the maxim that you should hire people that are better than you.
Yeah. And
I think that in a business like mine, where you've got very distinct roles in manufacturing, the people that are doing those roles are better than I am at them. They are. They just have to be, because you can't be great at everything. And, you know, I see myself, I'm a very much, we used to do this with the postgrad students, but you can categorize, and this is very basic, but you can people tend to have attributes of starters and finishers in projects, in teams. So what you really want, you can't have a team of starters because you won't actually finish anything. And you can't have a team of finishers because actually you won't have anything started. So there's nothing to finish. So if at the smaller scale, I think, you know, if let's say you've got, I don't know, filmmaking idea, and you can set it off if you've got the idea, you set it off, and then somebody gets so far with it and you review it with them. And then you put your input and you just help direct it, and you become a director of work. that is immensely frustrating for somebody like me, and I think you, that actually is used to doing something, because I can sit and draw. I can draw by hand. I can do 3D CAD. I can do spreadsheets. I can do all kinds of stuff. I can write, I can do loads of stuff, but not necessarily the best use of your time when you get to a certain level of busyness. So you've got to work out which bits. I'm not saying I've got this crack, by the way, Bruce. I really haven't. And I'll often be doing something and people will say, should you be doing that? As in, can I help you? Or, but I think that's the key to it, is trusting people, and then also knowing where you're good. So knowing where you're going to really make an impact in the scheme of things, and then inputting that input so that at the end of it, you look and you go, well, I'm glad I got involved with that. Occasionally I let things go and then I go, oh my God, it's like, why are you doing this? But often it actually is fine. And you just go, oh, it just needs a gentle nudge. And then other times now with stuff, I'm just like, there's some things going on. I'm just like, people tell me what's going on, what's for everything. And we're really good at reporting. We've got a board of directors. We've got all kinds of things that I've had to learn how to do. But I can find out things, but there's things going on I don't really have to know about. I don't need to know exactly how things go, as long as they go from there to there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are sending product. We send products all over the world. We export 60% of our factory output.
Wow.
So it's like it's gone to another level and it's going really fast.
What do you find is your sorry to interrupt. Apologies.
Yeah. No, at all. No, go ahead.
What do you find is like your biggest market? Is it the cycle market or the motorcycle market?
So because we're UK based, we tend to talk to UK people. We're obviously English and everything else. We have, multilingual website and stuff. Yeah. But there are way more cyclists than there are motorcyclists. That's just a fact. There's about 100,000 new motorcycles registered a year, but there are probably 1 million or 2 million bicycles if you include all the kids ones in the UK. Yeah. So we're talking just radically different numbers. So in terms of our customers, we would see something like, and this varies, but it could be 3 or 4 to 1 in the favor of bicycle. But actually motorcyclists are really interesting because of the stuff I was talking about earlier about motorcycles and engineering and stuff. They tend to be really good at researching and going out and understanding the problems that they're facing with security. And then they just go, I need this. But there are more cyclists than motorcyclists. That's just a fact globally. But motorcycling is changing, isn't it? The way that it's become portrayed, and the kind of little tribes of types of rider, and the coffee places that have grown up, or the places to go. I'm so pleased it's like this.
Yeah, the sort of hipster movement. Yeah. The coffee house hipster movement had a big impact on motorcycling, because the whole custom sort of cafe racer scene really came back to the fore here in the UK, especially. So you had your bike sheds and like after the bike shed, there were so many new coffee house cafe type, lovely, not greasy spoon type places, but really nice cafes spring up all over the country. And it's nice. I definitely notice it. A lot of people say they don't, but I notice there's a new blood coming into the biking scene. Not always youngsters, but there's a lot of people that do what we did. They're getting to that stage in life where they're like, I always fancied a bike, but they never did it. And now maybe they have the money to do it, or they've not got the parent there going, no, you're not doing that. So they go and do it. And I see a lot of new people into biking, but I'm not sure if the bike sales reflect that, but it does feel to me like it's growing.
So we're part of the Motorcycle Industry Association, which is a really cool thing that actually distributes information data all the time about what sells. And we're interested in where are thefts happening, which are the worst areas, and also what are people riding. And I looked at them just before coming on because I thought it might be kind of helpful. What was interesting was I mean, it's not surprising, but scooter sales are way beyond motorcycle sales last year. And this is because, and that skews the sort of CCs in a sort of 125 kind of size. But obviously, this is people commuting, right? So it's a practical thing. They're often around cities. One thing that's happened is that, sorry, I don't want to jump into this, but is that some of the territories where places are, the places where bikes have been stolen have changed. The sort of leaderboard has changed in the last year. There's a lot more in Avon and Somerset, and actually South Wales, where we are right now. Yeah, they've jumped up the leaderboard, and I'm not sure exactly why, but we'll dig into it. We obviously, but yeah. So there's stuff going on. There are more people coming into it. I really like this kind of cafe culture thing, and it's you live your life thing again. It's like you can go and ride your bike to a coffee place. I love good coffee. We had a meeting yesterday with a supplier. I took them to the best coffee place I could find near where their factory is, because it's like, let's go have some really good coffee. And if you do that on your bike and you just sit looking at other people's bikes and it's really enjoyable, I think.
Yeah, definitely. My issue these days is knowing where all these decent bike cafes are. You know, it's yes. I often see them, I pass them, or you see them on social media, people posting up. But just like if I want to go for a ride, I would love it if there was like an app, or even if they could integrate it. I'm a big Moto fan, so I would love it if they did it. But if there was just an app where you could just go, right, I want to generate a route to do. Where are the bike cafes, the good bike cafes along that route?
Yeah. I bet it does exist somewhere, but it's finding it. Yeah,
folks, if you've heard of it, please let me know.
I'm the same. I keep noticing, finding new ones. People, mainly from social. You know, we have outreach, which occasionally somebody will say, "Well, have you seen this?" And that's how you find them, and you just expand them. But you've got to, I agree with you. I think finding new places as well is quite joyous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, because if you're out on a route and you just want to go somewhere, it's brilliant to know that you're going to go and have a really good coffee with a bunch of people. And this week I dropped into do you know Baffle House that are in
great
so
cake.
Baffle House is
great
just
cake.
Awesome. They have just opened a little pop-up in something called the Old Post on the A48, which is near Cowbridge, so somewhere near Cardiff. And this is it's a sort of temporary step towards the bigger thing that they're going to release. But I just dropped in to say hello. I was driving past, not on a bike or anything. And it's like 2 days open, and there were about 10 bikes outside.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing. And it's a tiny little place at the moment until they expand it, but it's really cool.
Sorry to interrupt, folks, but just a quick shout out for this week's sponsors, who are, as always, Ultimate Add-ons. Ultimate Add-ons have been back in the podcast for the last few years, and I've been using their products since probably around about 2017, 2018. They specialise in phone holders, so both the mounts that attach to your bike and the protective cases that your phone goes in. Now, these cases are shockproof, they're dustproof, they're the perfect things to put your phone in whilst you're on the bike, and even if you do have a mishap, your phone is nicely protected inside that case. You can still use the phone, you can still use the touchscreen, you can even still use the cameras. They do a wide selection of mounts. I use the ratchet strap, which is actually in their cycle section, but you can pick any one you like for your particular bike or a generic one. It's up to you. Ultimate Add-ons are also doing a number of other accessories, things like action camera mounts. They're also now doing heated grips. They do things like a balaclava, USB, USB-C, power adapters, lots of different things. Head to their website, check out the products, and if you use the code TeapotOne with the number 10, TeapotOne10, then you will get 10% off. A massive thanks to Ultimate Add-ons for all your support. And a massive shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreons, patreon.com/TeapotOne. I literally could not do this full time without your support, folks. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for going that extra mile with your support. You're also the backbone of the Brewtime podcast with all your questions. So keep them coming and we'll go from strength to strength. I said there that I don't often get the opportunity to get out on the bike. So when I do, like yesterday was a prime example. There's a couple of boys I used to work with in the old Bill, and I'd not seen them in years. And we've been trying to organise a time when all three of us were available. And literally, we've been trying to do that for the last year. So yesterday happened to be a day when we could all make it happen. For 4 or 5 hours, we had free. And it was just a case of, right, let's go. Where are we going to go? That's decent roads, and we'll go and have a brew, a decent brew somewhere. And I was Googling cafes and, good biker cafes, and like there were some popping up, but a lot of the cafes are like pubs, you're like, nah, there's got to be like a good, proper cafe.
It's a social thing. I bet you there's there'll be someone on Instagram or somewhere that'll just know this.
Yeah.
And I would have thought, but I agree. We'll after this, we're going to have a look, shall we? If I find something, I'll send it to you.
Thank you very much. Likewise. And folks, if you're listening or watching, if you know, leave me a link down below or tag me in the socials because, we need this. And if there's not and you fancy doing it, do it and let me know and I'll promote it for you, 100%. Okay, right, Neil. Absolutely. Liteloks. How did you get into Liteloks? How did this all arise then? How did you arrive going, right, I'm going to go into bike or motorcycle security?
So I mentioned to you that I've had 3 bikes stolen, those bicycles. And obviously that was in the back. I also mentioned to you about my work with the Royal College of Art and Imperial College. Yeah. Years ago, there was a bicycle innovation workshop. Mm-hmm. And in it, the little team that I actually mentored or ran came up with the idea of lighter weight bike logs, basically. Mm-hmm. And it took some years of absolute failure to get anywhere. So this is way back until I actually thought this is a really good idea, but actually the execution of it, or just the whole thing, bearing in mind that I'm doing another job at the time, I'm teaching and I'm doing a design consultancy. So in 2014, just the end of 13, a friend of mine from university that I'd done a project with, or a few projects with actually, since, had actually sold his business. This is the guy I was talking about earlier that's in Sydney, Will Riley. Yeah. And Will came to see me, and he was doing his tour of the world, having sold his business, which I was extremely envious of. But I met him in London for a beer, and he told me some stories of travels and so on. And he said to me, I mentioned earlier about my little secret projects. He said, well, what have you got in the bottom drawer? And I was telling him all the projects I was working on. There were all kinds of things, speculative things, constantly coming up with like crazy stuff. But one of the things that I told him about was the bike lock idea. And I said, look, it's just failed to get off the ground. It's technically not there, but also it's just trying to do it with some other people. It just wasn't working. And he said to me, why don't you give up everything you're doing? I'll back you and we'll start a business that does just start again. He said, I reckon, and this is a guy that's genuinely backed me, I would say. Yeah. So I'm happy to give him the massive credit for that. He's our chairman, non-executive chairman on the board. And so I said, well, okay, let's talk about it. Because I kept coming back to this thing, of like sort of fascination with it. So I had young kids, and again, it was like another moment of, oh my God, you just stop everything. You've got this, professorship, you've got all these things going on, but you're just going to go and do this other thing. And I took an office in Swansea, which was, again, I'd been working from home for a bit, and I was really quite used to that because I'd had young kids, and I was like, right, I'm going to do this properly. Went and found an office. My kids, I've got photos of my kids all the way through the business. So this is 10 years, exactly 10 years ago, putting together my furniture for my new business. And it was basically me in an office with this guy in Sydney cheering me on, basically starting again. And I started again. And within a year, I got some technology together for the first product. And we took on a couple of people. We were really, really constrained. We didn't have a lot of money. We were just kind of doing things in a very organic way and sensible way. But both of us, he sold a marketing agency, so he has that marketing side. I'd obviously done all of what I'd done. So the combination was good. And in 2015, we went from secret. We didn't even have a name, and the name changed because the company is actually called Zeal Innovation. And the reason for that is because it's an innovation company to make other things, to make whatever we want to make. And Liteloks is a brand. And it actually was called something else until we got a trademark dispute. And we were like, oh, it needs to be called this. So that all happened quite quickly. We decided at the time, and I knew a few people that had done this, to put the first product onto Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. Kickstarter is and it's become something slightly different, but it is a crowdfunding platform for products and projects. So there are films on there are products like ours on there are even books and things like that. And you basically got an idea, you pitch the idea to the audience, and you have a particular period to sort of raise backing. And the backing is basically pre-orders. So effectively, people going, if you can make that, I'll buy one of those, and they give you their money.
Then it shows investors that you've got X amount of pre-orders.
But you're not giving away anything of your business.
Yeah.
So you are putting the product out now. Actually, it seemed like a great idea, and it was a great idea. We did £232,000 in a month.
Jeez.
We went from secret to that. And we did 17, I know all the numbers, 1,749 products in a month. And we were like, oh, there might be something in this. Not that we didn't think there was. And I put everything into it. You can imagine everything went into this. And I actually answered all of the comments and questions myself, because we subsequently went on and did another few of these campaigns. They are hard work. They are really hard work. Long hours. The thing that got me through it was Breaking Bad. I actually watched the whole of Breaking Bad during Kickstarter. I go to my poor wife, because she's not really into that stuff. She was like, what are you watching now? And every time she'd come in, it would be some really insane bit of Breaking Bad. And she'd go, what are you watching? But it switched me out of it. But we did this, and then we obviously set about. I'd already placed some of the tooling orders, and things were all becoming a product. It was a product, but there was a lot to do, and it took us probably the best part of another year to get the first production through. Made in Wales, and I'm proudly Welsh. I'm proudly manufacturing in Wales, which is important to me. And interestingly, over the last few years, more things are coming back. But it's that control of your technology and just the ability to hire people and create some value in our economy.
So is the whole product made and manufactured there in Wales?
Yeah, so we have some parts come in from elsewhere, but we are a proper manufacturer.
That's fantastic.
We've had a factory since about 3 or 4 years. So at the time of that Kickstarter, we had little outsourced suppliers. And we still have some of those, including the original one. But we've realized, and COVID did this to us. I can talk to you about COVID in a minute, because it's quite interesting from my perspective, what I did. But it meant that we couldn't get things made in places, but also there's some things that, this is the inventor thing, the things I'm coming up with sometimes to make that cost effectively. So we go, well, we can. And we do it. We created, I'm jumping around a bit, but we've created our own processes. So in not just creating a product, but creating the processes that make the product. So you wouldn't believe what goes into each product. You look at the product and think, well, it's just probably comes out of a container somewhere. No, it doesn't. It has loads of people, not loads of people, but we have 28 people. So we have lots of people we have a small team of people doing the development. And then we've got people making the parts and bringing it all together and assembling it and putting it in a box. And we send the box behind me, the sort of, there it is, that one, is the X1 and the X3 box, which is the kind of D-lock type lock.
Yep.
So this one, that's a box which is made within a mile of where we are now.
Really?
And there's no glue, there's no plastic in there in the packaging. So this is a plant-based polymer overmolding that we developed ourselves. We made the machine to make it. It's just nuts. Wow. When I look at it, I think we haven't just made this product. We've actually made the whole infrastructure around it.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of know-how. Well, so it's exciting.
And lastly, a big shout out to all of you who are either watching a podcast or listening just now on your platform of choice. If you can share with your mates, tell people about the podcast and help spread the word. That really does help. And if you're listening on things like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you can follow and leave a review or rating, 5 star is preferable, of course, then that would be absolutely fan-dabby-dosy. All right, folks, let's get back to the podcast. That's fantastic. I wasn't aware that it was like a wholly UK-based product.
Yeah, we do get some bits coming in, but of course we do. But yeah, our clever stuff is done here and by us, and it's hard.
That's great to hear this day and age.
Yeah, this is why. So we probably haven't. Well, if you haven't heard it, probably lots of other people haven't either. But the Made in Britain thing or the Made in Wales, you've got to be careful with Made in Wales. I love Made in Wales, but people in America, for example, don't really know exactly where Wales is. So you kind of end up going Made in Britain works.
Yeah.
But we those stories, we probably don't land them well enough because we're also a little bit twitchy about showing people exactly what we do because it's know-how and we're precious. But like I said to you previously, we are solar powered. So it's a beautiful sunny day now. So I know that all the energy that's being consumed by anything in here is being consumed off the grid. And we have local people and, it's great. I mean, I think it's something to be proud of, but not without its challenges.
Yeah, I bet. Like Wales, what do you do when the sun's not shining?
Well, you still get some power out, but it hasn't. Well, let's be honest, it hasn't been sunny since. Well, somebody said to me the other day, July.
Well, I bought my new bike.
Christmas. It's been horrific.
Yeah, I bought my new bike, the new GS, in October. Early October, I got that. And the day I picked it up, it rained, and it kind of feels like since then, you probably count on one hand the amount of times I've ridden that bike in the dry. Yesterday being one of them. So it's it feels like it's just rained, certainly since October.
It completely has. Yeah, it's shocking.
Ridiculous.
And I know. Yeah, it's tragic, isn't it? But it just changes everything. You see people going around today and they're smiling, and it's just changed their outlook completely.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I think that's an hour we've been gassing for. I think we better hit some questions because otherwise we might rival Mossy. I think on that 7.5 hours. I don't know if you've seen how this all goes here, Neil, but I post up on my Patreon, on my socials. So people chucking questions. Sometimes they're about you and your product and your company, and other times they're totally random. So we'll go to the clan first. Patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Charlie Callard. How you doing, Charlie? Evening, gents. Hope you're both fitting well. So as a Liteloks user, thank you. I have the Liteloks One Moto, and going away on the bike is made much more enjoyable knowing it's locked up tight with a quality bit of kit. So my question, you're on an exotic biking tour and you come into a small town. You decide to pass on the McDonald's and try the local cuisine. When the waiter brings it, this is going to be random, isn't it? When the waiter brings it out, it's ram, bull, and horse testicles. Which ones are you trying first? Sorry about these questions, Neil, but yeah.
That's okay. What's the choice?
Ram, bull, or horse testicles? Which one are you trying first?
Oh, you've got to choose which animal. Oh, geez.
I'll tell you right now, none of them. I wouldn't try any of them. No.
Yeah, I'd be struggling. I did back in the day when I was developing stuff for other people. I'd go to Asia, and it was quite funny because they take you out for dinner, and these quite a young couple that ran this factory were like, "Oh, we're going to order loads of food for you." And they ordered me these eyeballs, and I was like, and I felt obliged to try them, so I did.
Oh, you didn't? No,
yeah,
I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
I said, "Do you eat these?" And they went, "No." Sorry.
It's even like fish eye soup. I wouldn't eat that. And I had a Jamaican mate that I used to work with, and he used to love chicken's feet, like chicken's feet soup and stuff like that. I'd be like, "You're an animal. Why would you eat that?" Oh,
I have had chicken's feet actually in Taiwan.
I
But
can
they
do it.
look just absolutely just, oh,
It's a
yes.
chicken's foot. He used to be
I
sat on the
know.
bus with us, just gnawing away on a chicken's foot.
Oh,
Oh no.
yeah, I
I
think
mean,
we'll pass on that one, Bruce.
yeah, yeah. When you're traveling, like I get asked all the time, what's the most random or obscure or minging thing you ate on the big trip, on the world trip, and I can honestly say everything I ate to me just seemed fine because a lot of the time I didn't really know. I didn't know what I was eating in some places.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just
yeah. The
ate it.
language.
So I have no
Yeah.
idea what I ate. It always tasted like beef or chicken most of the time. So that
Yeah, a
was
lot of
it.
the things are the thought of it, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 But oh well, when you're hungry, you eat, but I certainly would not eat bollocks. I'll tell you that right now. Cheers, Charlie. Thanks for that one, mate. Next one, Paul Brown. Hi, Bruce and Neil. Hope you're both well. Question to both of you. It's fair to say the Liteloks was one of the most high profile security product releases ever. A completely new approach with many plus points. Many trusted YouTubers had one and endorsed the Litelok. However, it became the subject of many, I believe, unfair articles and videos of it being overcome. Those who had endorsed it took those who had endorsed it also took a fair amount of flack about it. Why do you think it seems to generate such a backlash, and did it affect your strategy going forward? Thankfully, the X1 and X3 seems to have been well regarded from the beginning. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning about the challenges in building a business, and what he's referring to is is that. And I think when you have a business that is substantially online and we're in a trust-based category, the fact is I've had bikes stolen. I want to create the best products I can create. There's no other agenda here for me. Is that actually there was an element of people like to pile on things, and
100%.
actually what he's referring to is actually a video which went pretty viral and was pushed by somebody anonymous, and you got to question it. And I had to live through all of this and answer stuff and whatever, and I certainly didn't shy away from it. What actually happened was that it meant we had a product which passed the Soul Secure Gold test. So we were selling something that was accredited. So we only sell things that are accredited independently. Of course, we are really good at testing. We've become amazing. We've got amazing equipment and we're really good at it. But we know that people aren't just going to go, oh, you say it's really good, so therefore I'll buy it. So because people need insurance and so on. So we go to people like Soul Secure, we go to ART in the Netherlands, and there are others around the world. Not that many, but there are a number. So the fact is that it was accredited at that high level. The stuff that happened ended up changing the tools that were used in the test, because we passed the test and the tool was a different tool. And you just got to question, why does somebody want to create that? Because the fact is that bikes were not being stolen in that way. Because we're all over the data. We're constantly talking to the police. We talk to Secured by Design. We talk to everybody we can. I said to you about MCIA and MCRG, and there are all kinds of organizations. Effectively the tool list changed, and the only casualty was us. So this is a classic innovator's dilemma: is for one thing, your product doesn't suddenly become rubbish overnight, right? It's still protecting lots of bikes, and it is still a really good product. The fact is, the test that was done anonymously on the floor, and with a tool that at the time was difficult to find in the world, because we had to import it from Japan or somewhere.
Is this the big cable cutter?
Yeah, yeah. It's a particular kind of cable cutter. You can actually buy other ones now. So anyway, so now what we did though was, the big response was, you couldn't just go, oh well, okay, it's not very good, and that isn't the fact. That I stand by the fact it's a great product, and I still use the product, and lots of people do, and it's great, and it will do the job. But I just so happened that this is around the time that COVID started to happen. So being the inventor that I am, and as I said to you earlier, the easiest way to describe myself is, I'm kind of secretly doing stuff. I just went into my shed, which is actually a railway carriage, and I disappeared into there for most of COVID. Obviously still had the first factory going into just being built, and not the building being built, but the processes being built. And came up with a new product that actually breaks those cutters. Wow. And the product is Core. So Liteloks Core breaks those cutters. It snaps the cutters. Not all of them, but most of them affordable ones.
Wow.
And so that we set, and it's a classic response of somebody going, well, hang on, what are you going to do about this? Well, actually, we're going to do something even better. We're not just going to fold and go, oh, well, yeah. So I'm quite proud of us for doing that. The reason I'm sitting in a factory today, because we had to take on another premises, because we have a process that involves lasers that is, the main part of it's 11 meters long. The rest of it's probably the same again. So it's quite big in order to make the product, which is the Core product, which is this one. Right. Yep. So so this has got, how about that? This has got an exoskeleton. Yeah, this has got an exoskeleton around a flexible core. This is all patented, and it's all made here in Wales, and it's actually made in our factory. And I think one of your questions that did come through was, why does it keep selling out? Are you closing it up? We can't make them fast enough, like lots of our locks, because actually there's high demand. And but that was our response to what you were talking about. So we still have those technologies, and they're still good, but we have even better ones. And we've gone again above Core. We've actually come up with X1 and X3, which is I'd been working on since 2017, so 6 years. The angle grinder resistant material is just absolutely incredible performance. So we've gone from ART2, which is the Netherlands rating, to ART3 with Core, which is what I just showed you, to ART4, which is motorcycle diamond, which is the highest in the UK, and it's motorcycle rated in Europe as well. So that's our response to these things is to just keep getting better. And it's become harder because we've stepped more into manufacturing. But at the same time, we've learned so much about this and how to develop products. And bear in mind that when you buy our products, anybody's locks, they have to get to the level that they're getting to. And I do trust the accreditation process, by the way. By the way, it's like having kids again every year when I go to an annual audit. It's horrendous. Because you're like, oh my God, they're going to break your lock. It's how long it takes. That's basically the game. And the fact is that every lock has to survive to get to the rating. The tool list, I can't tell you what those are, but the tool list for that rating, for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of force. So we've replicated all of that in our own little lab. And so we know what we've got. So it isn't as nerve-wracking as it sounds, but it is still nerve-wracking. So that's how this works. And you've got to go against all the other tools. I honestly, you were asking at the beginning about starting a business. My wife and I talk about this. Why did you choose to do something that people want to break? I didn't think it through. It's the answer. You don't, because you don't think like that. You don't think, you just think, I can do something better. That's my mentality. I can do something better. And but the fact is that our products are there to protect people's bikes. And just to flip this conversation a bit, we get what we call a success story about once every 2 days, sometimes once every day, from around the world, of people saying, Liteloks, thank you. You've stopped my bike from being stolen. Here are the photographs. Here's the CCTV footage, or whatever it is. This is what happened. And we collect those and we actually show other people them, because that's the efficacy of a lock. We really only exist to stop the thieves, and the thieves are, if your products are good, they'll move on to somebody else's.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll always go for the easy option. 100%.
Yeah,
they'll always go for the easy option.
So that's the long answer. You've got a lot more there than the answer. Sorry.
As a consumer and someone that's within the industry, so to speak, I mean, I follow you guys. I follow Liteloks on your socials, and I'm very aware of the success stories. But they're with the X1, X3. I'm very familiar with them.
No, we have them with the others as well all the time. So
as a like a customer, I can't think off the top of my head a time when I've seen the Moto. So for me, it's like, well, if the success ones out there, push them a lot more, because at the moment I only see the X1, X3s.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's self-perpetuating to some extent. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the fact is, it depends where you are. My advice to people is use the security that's appropriate for where you are, and use as much security as you can carry and you can afford. There's some places where you don't need angle grinder resistance because there aren't a lot of angle grinder thefts. So therefore, but there are other places where you absolutely do have to have it. I've traveled around with this company to do various missions of connecting with people and all kinds of things. Probably the worst place I've been so far is San Francisco. I was in San Francisco. I'd going around all the bike shops. I actually hired a bike and cycled around all the bike shops in San Francisco. Big mistake, because there's so many hills.
Of course.
I did right. Yeah. I looked at the map and I was like, I'd go through to Oakland. It was 6 miles. I'll be absolutely fine. 6 miles uphill.
Yeah.
I got to this bike shop and I'm just like this. And the legs are gone.
Can't walk. Yeah.
But that place, one bike shop I went in, somebody's brake cables had been stolen. The guy was like, just give me some brake cables. They've just been stolen. Because there's a currency on the street of bike bits, and you can't leave your bike for any time at all. It'll just get sort of completely broken up.
It's like catalytic converters, isn't it? Or at the moment, there seems to be more and more of the TFT dashes off the BMWs. They are starting to be stolen a lot more now. So obviously, companies are now springing up security devices that will lock your TFT in place. It's crazy. It's like they're not just nicking the whole bike anymore. It's just specific bits they'll go for.
Well, it's the value, isn't it? And it's a bit like e-bikes with batteries and motors. Those are the valuable bits.
Yeah.
But the thing has changed, certainly with angle grinders, that motors and batteries have become cheaper. So you can buy an angle grinder in the supermarket, in one of those middle aisles. So yeah, it's a bit of a I wouldn't say an arms race, but it's that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, we're saying nothing is ever 100%, but your X1, X3 seems to be, they seem to be completely grinder proof from the,
they're not proof. Nothing is tool proof. So it's about time. So
yes,
but they are serious high performance. I mean, they're way beyond what they need to be to pass the tests that they do. And we can tune our technology as well to put more baronium in the right place. So we're constantly looking at that. And we make sure that there aren't any places where you could find a way through. And, we are very diligent. And to do that at scale is actually quite difficult. And that's why controlling our own manufacturing is what we do. And it gets checked. Everything gets checked many, many times before it gets anywhere near a box at the end. Because we've got to do a great job with this. And one of the reasons that you'll see behind me, if I duck, there's the Abloy cylinder and the Abloy key on the X3. And that was, Abloy is one of the biggest lock companies in the world. I approached them and said, I'd like your cylinder in one of our next locks. And they're like, kind of, who are you, almost? And we wanted to put the most pick resistant lock into the most cut resistant lock we could make. And the fact is that people don't probably pick locks to steal bikes, but having a super premium, high quality, beautifully engineered key and cylinder actually makes a better, reliable product. And we put an incredible corrosion coating on that product as well, which lasts for many, many years. And it's way beyond what any other lock company will do. For a fact, I know they don't. So we test all of their locks. And so we're trying to make something excellent. That's what we're trying to do. So you'd expect that the most expensive, the best lock has got all of that kind of involved with it. And it's hard to make. We make it ourselves.
Baronium.
Yeah.
Now, I am no, pardon my ignorance, chemist. Was baronium around before you?
My name's Barron.
So it's an actual compound designed, created for you.
Yeah. I ran an Innovate UK project, which is a government-funded project with Swansea University to develop highly cut-resistant materials. And it's not a new element by any means. It's a composite material. Some of the technologies exist in other parts of industry, so we are bringing together things that are where. But we've created something which we have obviously got our intellectual property and know-how in. So there are materials and geometry and the way it's applied and so on, and it's substantially tested and everything else. We wanted to name it because why wouldn't you? We've created something amazing. And it works, and it rips apart discs, cutting discs, and just puts in that barrier of time, a lot of time. And I don't know if you've seen our website lately. We've just revised. So I spent a couple of months working with an animator to try and dramatize baronium, because people are like, well, what is it? How does it work? And it's kind of like you can't show them the chemistry or the pure engineering, because partly because we don't want to, but partly because it's quite hard to communicate, right? So what we've done is we've done an animation that shows these very hard particles sitting in a substrate, which is metallurgically bonded, so effectively welded to the surface of steel. So the point about defending against multiple tools is that the baronium is mainly there to defend against the angle grinder, and the steel is there to do everything else. So we have this kind of hybrid system with a composite material on a very good quality steel, and that's what we've developed. And to develop that at scale and to manufacture it in Wales, basically, because that's what we do, is what we've spent time doing. And we bought it, we launched it. We kind of knew what we had. I've got a couple of. Do you want to do more questions? I've got a couple of great stories about when I was doing the testing.
So I have all the time in the world, Neil. It's all down to how long you want to be here.
So there's a motorcycle related story. So we had to YouTubers and things. We had back in the day, a few years ago, we had somebody on YouTube that angle ground one of our locks and went, well, it's not good against an angle grinder. This was not meant to be an angle grinder resistant lock. Right. And we went into dialogue with him rather than going into denial. We talked to him and we said, look, he had a title on his video that was a bit misleading. And we just talked to him and said, look, he was very reasonable. He was a locksmith in Colorado. And I started chatting with him and he said to me, look, I've got some ideas, but if you ever develop an angle grinder resistant lock, let me know, because I'd like to work with you. So I don't forget anything like that. So I remembered this, but of course went away and developed my own technology. And then when it came to testing it, I thought, well, why don't we get back in touch with the very skeptical locksmith in Colorado, go and see him. No kind of like not paying him or anything, just literally like, you're skeptical, me, I've talked to you, let's try this product. So this is the good part of the story. So when I go anywhere, there's always a transport problem, right? So you go, well, you look at the States, it's so big. I mean, I'm sort of naive when I look at it and I think, well, I look at a street map and I think, well, I could walk from there to there, and you can't because it's huge, right? So I looked at the map and I was like, well, I don't even know how to get there. So I had to go to Denver. And then his locksmith place was up in the mountains near Aspen, Colorado. I mean, really cool place. In this little basin, sort of over the top of this 12 or 13,000 foot mountain, which was in the winter would be snow. And so I was like, well, I've got to hire a car. And then I was thinking, I'm going to hire a bike. So I've started doing this. I'm kind of becoming famous for it. So I hired, and I thought, well, what am I going to hire? And I'm not a big Harley fan. No disrespect to Harley people, by the way, at all. I get it. I think they're cool, but it's not my thing, right? So everybody's like, "Oh, hire a Harley," and I'm like, no. So I got a Yamaha Tenere 1200 adventure bike, which is what they had in the particular place. There are multiple stories here, which I think you might like. So I went in to picked up the bike, and these guys are like, "Oh, you're English?" No, like, well, actually, I'm Welsh, but let's not talk about that. And they said, "Well, why are you here?" And they saw me loading up the bike with all these locks and stuff. And I actually had core with me because it was brand new. This is in 2022, so I had that with me for taking photos in the desert. And I had the prototypes of the two X locks. And so I started talking to them, and they were like, the first thing they said to me was, I said, "Oh, I'm going to meet this locksmith, and he's going to test these locks for me. I don't know what's going to happen." They said, "Well," I said, "these are angle grind resistant. They're really, really high spec and everything." And they said, "We've got guns. Do you want us to shoot them?" That happened to me four times on the trip. Yeah, and these guys in the bike hire place were like, "We're going to shoot it." And he said, "I've got collection guns. I'll start with the smallest and then I'll move up." It's just like, oh my God. So anyway, I get on the bike. I said there's multiple stories. They're all bike related. Got on the bike, rode out of Denver, out of the city, got into the most incredible place. I mean, I would go back in a heartbeat. Went up to Aspen through these mountains, and you're cutting through what I can only describe as Wile E. Coyote territory. They're cut through these red rocks, and you're riding along, and I'm just thinking, I'm the luckiest man alive. I'm doing it. I've got my locks on the back. I've got a small bag. This is it, And so anyway, I get to meet the locksmith who I buy lunch for. And he says to me, "Look, we're going to do the testing. I'll go to my workshop. It's just down the road." And down the road was like 70 miles away. Yeah. Right. So he said, "Look, if you don't mind, I've got to deliver a safe. So I just go, you follow me to my house in my pickup truck, and we'll pick up the safe, and then we'll go to the workshop." So I'm like, "Fine, I'll do whatever. I've come, really far. I've just got to do this." Right. So I follow this guy who I barely know. He goes to his house, and he's meet his wife and stuff. He gets into the truck, reverses up. There's a 5-ton safe on the back of a trailer. So he takes off on this pickup truck, and he goes onto these roads, and he goes back into Wile E. Coyote territory, straight through these rocks. And the safe is bouncing around on the trailer, and I'm behind it going, and he starts to accelerate, and I'm just like, I don't know if I can keep up with you. I literally
He's got a 5-ton trailer on the back.
I'm on a motorcycle. He's outpacing me completely. And all I could think was, I'm at this sort of pre-launch stage of what I think is probably my best ever work. And all I can see is headlines of like founder dies in Wile E. Coyote tragedy or something.
Final destination thing.
Yeah. And so anyway, I followed him, went into his workshop. He tested these things, and he just went through loads of discs, and he was really good at cutting, by the way. And I filmed him with no scripting, no, look, try this, don't do this, don't touch that, just do whatever you like. He turned to me and he said, "I have never seen anything like this. I've got safes." Wow. He said, "I've never seen anything like it." So I actually we haven't put it anywhere because I didn't know what to do with it, but I got him to say it on camera because I could show it to my board and say, "Look, I told you it was good."
Neil, there's a thing called social media. It's quite powerful.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, so then I ended up having to go back, obviously, went back in reverse, went up over the Aspen Mountain, then got hit by a thunderstorm, got back to stay in a hotel in Denver. I mean, drenched to my pants, really horrific. And I did have a little Insta camera on there to try and capture some of this. And I don't think I quite got the thunderstorm, but it was like, you could see me just going like this.
They do storms well in the States, don't they?
They do.
It was storms.
Incredible. Got back to take the motorcycle back the next morning. I turn up, and there's a row, and we've got some of these photos on our website, but probably not the most kind of interesting ones. There's a row of Harleys outside, And I walk in and there's two guys in cowboy hats. And I was like, I'm from Wales. I've never seen people with cowboy hats on.
Yeah.
Can I talk to you? And they were basically the PR guys and the content people for is Eagle Rider, I think the hire company.
Yeah.
And so I got chatting to them and I said, can I take some photos of you with my locks? So I've got these photos of them in cowboy hats, locking Harleys with Liteloks X. I couldn't believe it. I was just my luck, it was just amazing.
Happy
and then
days.
I flew home.
Do you find I've just come back from, I was in the States in March and I was all around Appalachia, like West Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, all around that area, just on a big solo bike trip. And people are wearing cowboy hats all over the place and they're all driving great big trucks. And I just fell in love with the place. Like that is where I want to live, I want to move to the States. I want a house by the lake up in the mountains with great roads. And all of these places had that in abundance. And everyone's wearing cowboy hats, driving great big trucks. And I was just like, I want a cowboy hat. But can you imagine over here walking around with a cowboy hat on?
Oh my God.
Like, who's that?
It would put you in a certain category, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But over there, it's like, I'm home.
It's incredible.
I'm home. Yeah.
It's the space and also the other thing is the pickup trucks, the size of the engines. I can remember I could see this truck on the highway on this sort of horizon. It must have been like 8 or 10 liters. And you can hear it from miles away just going, whoa. And they love it, don't they? So you just think you're doing all your little things like we're trying to do eco things. And it's just like, it's pointless.
They're getting like 4 miles to the gallon. Yeah.
That is tough, and there is beauty there. I mean, the countryside and the variation of it is amazing. It's just the space as well and roads. If you like going on a motorcycle, these guys were riding up to a festival. I can't remember what it's called now. It wasn't in Boulder or somewhere like that, north of Denver. And it was. I looked it up. It was a really famous motorcycle thing, and I thought I've got to go back and go to that. I bet it's awesome. It's a big motorcycle meet for 3 or 4 days, big festival thing.
Well, they have Sturgis one day further up, haven't they?
Pardon?
They've got Sturgis, the Sturgis bike festival. That's a massive.
It might have been that. No, it might have been that. I forgot.
It's a good 300,000-400,000 people. It's huge.
Yeah. That'll be it. Sturgis, right? Yeah. Anyway, hell of an experience that was.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to get that footage on your socials. Like you need to do something with that.
I will do. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
For sure.
Cheers, Paul Brown, for that question. Next one, Paul Jacques. I have 2 locks. Question. What do you see as the biggest problem in making an unbreakable lock? Cost, technology, usability, or bikes themselves? So biggest issue. Well, he's saying an unbreakable lock. Obviously, as you said, there's no lock that is unbreakable.
The first thing I would say is there isn't such a thing as an unbreakable lock. It basically means, it's time and it's time and tools, really.
Yeah.
So, it's in technology or technique.
Yeah.
So what we've set out to do, really, or what I've set out to do is to create the lightest, most easy to use products that give you the level of security that you need. There's no point in making something that's enormous and you can't carry it, because that's the other thing is portability is, we find, one of the most critical things. People go, well, you made a brilliant lock, how do I carry it? We do things like these bags and stuff. There's this for core, which fits quite nicely in, and you can coil it up. And we've got mounts, we've got all kinds of new stuff coming in that area as well. But I think that so my answer is you balancing performance against usability, and making sure you make something that people actually can use and understand and will use. Because if there's no point in having security that you're not going to use, because then your bikes get stolen.
Yeah, I remember when I first got I think it's the Core. I've got the X1, I think it is, and I think it's the Core. I got them 2 or 3 years ago, but I remember the first time I tried to take the Core out with me, the Moto out with me, I was like, where am I going to put this? Because with the greatest will in the world, it wasn't going to fit around my waist. So I was like, where do I put this? And I tried just locking it around the back seat. But once I sat on the bike, my fat ass pushed the seat down and it rubbed on the back wheel. I was like, oh, bugger. But then the cogs eventually turned and it was like, oh, I can put it round the back box. I've got a top box on the GS, so I can put it around that. I just have to be careful because sometimes it drops down and obscures the top of my number plate, and be a horrible shame if the speed cameras couldn't read the number
with
plate.
That one.
So, so obviously you need to be very careful you don't do that.
So we call this cinching up. It doesn't cinch in a, it's not tiny, but you can cinch it up like that, and it comes with these straps. Also comes with a little protector that stops this scratching up your box and stuff. When just talking about usability, I've got to show you this in case people haven't seen it, but you know this. But one of the little stories about developing this range of products, because obviously all of this was done from a blank sheet of paper, really, was what I call click to lock. And I found that one of our staff recently just didn't have a clue what it was. So it's like, we're not doing a great job in communicating it. But it basically, you can lock the lock without the key. So that is immensely useful. I always say to people, it's like you wouldn't walk out of your front door and expect to have to actually lock it. You might double lock it for extra security, but you'd want to just close it, right?
Yeah.
So you get somewhere, you undo it, you've got your gloves on and everything, and then you just do that. And then you just obviously need to make sure you got the key with you, and you slip that open and use the key. And then open it up again. But those are the simple things, just to answer the question, that balancing performance with usability is, for me, is a bit of an art, and it's it's what you need to do. You've got to defend against all the tools and make it a usable product. It's not easy. For the length of it, is about half the weight of an equivalent chain.
Yeah.
That's a substantial difference.
I take them away on my tours all the time now. I put the X in the bottom of my top box, and the core, it just goes round the top box. So it's always there, and I see more and more people now. I've got people that come away on tours with me. It's just a collection of them now.
Well, the ideal thing is that you've got the core to if you can, tether it to something.
Yeah,
because then you can't move them. I mean, it's GS, right? So it weighs quite a lot. But, if somebody did want to come sort of wheel it into something or scaffold bar it away or whatever, ideally you attach it to something. And the X is brilliant going through discs and wheels. And that's really, they're like a real sort of supercharged disc lock, really.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to be able to roll it anyway. And people just look at it and go, move on.
Yeah.
That's the idea. That is the idea.
It puts it in the too difficult box, doesn't it? If there's another bike or a couple of bikes next to it that haven't got anything, well, they're going to go for the easy option, 100%. They do it time and time again. One thing with the core, what I do find, I very rarely can get the core around anything to lock it, so I just generally put it through the wheel. But when I park my bike up, a lot of the time it's like if I'm going away somewhere at the airport, so I'll ride to the airport, leave the bike all locked up, change out my bike kit, and go to the airport. So what I find I have to do is that the core isn't big enough to get round like the barrier at the airport that I used to chain the bike to. So I have a traditional big chain and padlock that I put round the barrier onto my bike, then the core and the X1.
I tell you, you're missing a trick, Bruce, right? So if you take two X1s, you put one round the front wheel, which does fit on the GS. It's 1300 you've got.
It is, yeah.
And then the other one, you can put around something as big as almost like a motorway. We've done it outside M&Ps locally. They've got this huge barrier that stops people ram raiding. Two of those, you can attach the whole bike to something, and it's just two D-locks.
Oh, wow.
So we're finding those are selling quite well as well, because we do it as what we call a bundle. But I call it daisy chaining. It's maybe not the first thing that comes to mind when people look at the locks, But
Say nothing. I'm saying nothing.
But it probably just needs to be shown to people to go, look, if you do this, you go, because that is what you really want, is immobilize a bike and attach it to something. You stuff them, because the thief's got to cut one or other of those locks. Mm-hmm. If they cut the one on the bike, that's obviously going to get it off the bike and leave the other lock in. So that's the only one they can cut. And that's the one that's harder to cut because it's in the bike. It's harder to get to and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll send you some pictures.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. Absolutely. Who's that? That was Paul Jack, wasn't it? Next one's Debbie Clegg. Hiya, happy evening to you both. Hiya, Debbie, how are you? My little question is, when you see the YouTubers doing the theft test on the locks, your brand and others too maybe, is there anything that really annoys you? Also, do you think that most of the tests they carry out are realistic enough to advertise the true properties of the locks? Yeah, that's you touched on that earlier. That's got to annoy.
Pardon?
That's got to annoy sometimes if they're doing something that, as you mentioned earlier, the lock isn't designed for. Or
things like somebody doing something which is not designed for is infuriating, and the only answer is, look, it's not meant to protect against that, particularly if it's accredited where that tool isn't in the list. But I can't blame people because the lists are not released, because they don't want thieves going, right then, this lock will be good with this. So we're not supposed to. We're part of things like Sold Secure. We keep it to ourselves. We're a customer of theirs, and we keep that stuff to ourselves. I do find it irritating when people present things that are clearly not true. And you think, well, hang on a minute, that's just not true. Mm-hmm. Whether it's about my product or anybody else's, to be honest. And so I think the most, what we're interested in is authenticity in everything we do. And I think that's the same with, if we wanted to look at YouTubers and things, if they're authentic, then that's cool. We almost can't make up those success stories. So I've got a campaign which we've trademarked, so I can talk about it now. It's the first time I've talked about it anywhere. It's going to be called Tested on Thieves, because our success stories are basically meaning that our products are tested on thieves. They work in the world.
Yeah, real life situations.
So we're going to use that actually as a thing. And there was Freddie Dobbs. Have you seen him on his on his Triumph? He had an attempted theft. We didn't set that up. It was him moving house, leaving his bike outside his flat just before he moved or when he moved, and then somebody had to go at his lock, and he made a little piece, and it was so authentic because he was like, "I'm so glad I had this lock, and I've still got my bike," and that is how it feels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Authenticity is what would annoy me the most. And when they do stupid stuff, that's clearly not real world. But ultimately, if your locks are good, they should survive, a certain amount of beating.
Yeah, because obviously the scroats out there that are trying to nick our bikes, they don't follow any rules, do they? They're just going to do whatever they can to get it. But at the same extent, as we've touched on, they're pretty lazy. B, they're to a degree time constraint. Although you often see the videos of people just walking by whilst folk are grinding away into locks and, they're doing nothing. But I would like to think there's quite a lot of people out there that would at least try and do something. So these thieves have got to think to themselves, they haven't got all day. There is a certain time constraint there. And as you said, the practicalities of it, a lot of the time they're on push bikes or motorbikes themselves. So whatever they use has to be fairly portable, hence the battery operated grinders that they're using. That seems to be the common thing at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
YouTube's and the socials, they're a weird thing because as a content creator, that the more outlandish type of things are going to generate more views. They're going to get more traction. But they also really annoy me. Like the whole clickbait thing really irks me sometimes when you see it and it's clickbait. I'm just like, Christ.
Well, I touched on it earlier about people putting titles on things to attract. I guess the thing that I hadn't really acknowledged until some years ago was how all the algorithms work on negativity. So negative stuff comes to the top, and that's pretty horrible when you're on the end of it, because you're like, well, hang on, there's that's going to be, and it just becomes viral. The other side of that, by the way, is, I'm sure you saw this, Christmas before last, we just launched Liteloks X, and Bikes and Beards picked it up in the States. And they did you see this? They did they did a mocked up theft they basically put their motorcycle in the street, and then they got all the products and they bought all the products. We tried to give them, they got in touch with us and said, we want to buy a product. And we're like, well, we'll give it to you if you're going to do something. And they're like, no, we want to buy it. And the reason for that is they wanted editorial control. So, we haven't been given this. There's no money changing hands. Anyway, this is right at the beginning of X launching. And it was my Christmas present, because it was Christmas Eve, which is my wife's birthday. And it was like, this thing's gone live. It got, I don't know what it's at now, but it got up to sort of 7 or 8 million views. It went nuts. And we watched the USA sales go like that. Yeah. And all it was, there was no link. It was half an hour long, and the one segment of the lock that they couldn't cut, and they ended up dragging out a generator into the street. It's really amusing, really entertaining video. Was our lock. And it was like, and all they said on screen was something about baronium, and there was some like fairly crude comments in the comments, and that was it. And off it went. And you just like I said to you, it was authentic. That's what they came up with. It was amusing, but also our product survived. There were lots of locks in it that were just smashed off in seconds, and that's the reality. And we test locks all the time. There are plenty of locks that we can cut in under 10 seconds. It's horrific. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that. It's like, they really are. It's horrific.
I've done some work with like garage security, a garage security company. And they were saying that, I went up to their factory to attack some of their like ground anchors and things like that. And you get very similar sort of comments and criticism about, well, I would just do this, I would do that. And you're like, well, you couldn't. Like for some of the ground anchors, they were saying, well, I just attack the bolts that attach it to the floor. And you're like, well, you can't access the bolts. That's the whole design. It's not possible. Yes. Yeah. So that's why we were doing what we were. You were doing this, or you're doing that. And I totally get what you're saying about. It's frustrating when you sometimes get criticism that I can understand why people have said what they've said, but because that product, you're like, yeah, but you wouldn't do that, or you couldn't do that. So
you've just triggered another one in me, which is. Basically, if locks are on bikes, I think that's authentic, because that's the reality of how people steal things. Go to Soul Secure, they have, or ALT, they have a little bike setup. They have the front end of a motorcycle. They have a back end of a bicycle. They put it onto the bike, and then they do the test. They also bench test and they floor test, but they do it. They know what they're doing, and we do the same. I think that thing about taking it into an artificial environment, putting it and using some other thing like the floor or the wall or something, or the reality is, I mean, I mentioned about San Francisco earlier. That's where I first saw people going around with bars and just levering things and using bikes to lever. That's another form of attack, and it's no tool at all. It's not a power tool. So, but it's knowing what to do, and so that's all annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting. I've been thinking of things like that and how to test and highlight the Liteloks locks, and it's like how would you do? How can you do it? That's not been done before. That's entertaining to the viewer, but also B. is a proper test. It's like, can you just advertise and go, any thieves out there that fancy coming along? And then I start thinking, well, what do I put it on? Because if I put it on my bike and they cut through it, if they're a thief, the chances are they'll probably maybe take my bike too. It's like, well, I don't want that. I want to keep my bike. It's a difficult one.
I got approached by two, I know you're in the Met Police, weren't you? Two Met Police guys that were involved with bike crime. And they go out and they're not allowed to, what do you call it? entrap people, but they do have bikes that might attract criminals. Yep. So they're not allowed to set it up so that it's, I don't quite know how they get around
entrapment.
That, entrapment, yeah. But I thought that this is, again, my kind of romantic side of the idea of putting some of our locks out in that and me hiding in the van with still a screen and just watching what happens. But the fact is, you could be there for weeks and nothing happens. But I that kind of is interesting, and their job sounded kind of interesting to me.
In London, someone would probably steal the van with you in it.
Yeah, probably. You'd steal your TV or something out of it, your screen.
Right, next question. Ollie Wood. Good evening, gents. Hope you're both doing well. All good, thanks, Ollie. Question. Neil, as a professional in the security industry, what punishment would you give to a bike thief to put others off from trying to steal bikes? Personally, I'd chop a finger off every time they tried it. Obviously, not a real-life punishment.
No, I can't be saying that. But I think that there needs to be some kind of consequences. And I would have thought, I mean, that seems sensible. If stealing bikes, you could stop. If it's motorcycles, you could take licenses away and stuff. I don't know whether that happens at the moment, whether they even have licenses.
If you're going to nick a bike, you're not going to be worried about not having a license.
Not going to be worried about that. Yeah. I do think that, if there's no punishment, then it's going to just get worse and worse and worse. And we're in that game of trying to stop people. And I said to you at the beginning about, I think motorcyclists are quite savvy about tech. They do their research, they look at things, and we've talked a lot in shows and stuff, and the way they approach us, and they go, I need this, they have something in their head. It's tragic that that's the case. I think that people have to go and buy the most expensive lock because they think that's the best, but also the fact that, the lock may not be as good as they think it is. Coming back to the question again, I don't know, but it needs to be something, because if it's nothing, then you just get a proliferation of theft. And I just think that, having been on the end of it, it's horrific.
Yeah. It kind of feels, and I felt this way since day one in the old bill, so going back over 20 odd years now, that there doesn't appear to be much of a consequence for that sort of illegal action. You don't pay your taxes, then you're screwed. You don't pay your taxes, the government's going to get you eventually. And when they do, there is no pity there. 7 days, here's the bill, pay it. And if you don't pay it, we're putting you in jail for a long time. And then when you come out of jail, we're still going to get that money. You can stab someone at knife point, and you might not even, you can rob someone at knife point. Chances are you probably won't even go to jail anymore, which is, in my mind, is just insane. You can have a gun, which should be a minimum 5-year prison sentence. I know people that haven't even gone to jail for having guns on them, and you're just like, where are we going here? So the fact that in London, I can only really speak for London because that's where I policed, there were no consequences for these bike thieves and, for the scroats that are going round on mopeds, mounting the pavement and ripping phones out of people's hands. When they were caught, nothing happened to them. And even if they did go to jail because they had 200, 300, 400 previous convictions on the record, which is just insane, but that's life now. They'll go to jail, and for them, it's nothing. It's a walk in the park. It's better than life, living on the estates where they lived before.
There's something you said earlier, Bruce, that, why don't people stop things that are happening? And I think part of the reason is that they, are scared that they're going to be attacked, because they often are. People
rightly so, because it's certainly a possibility.
But also because they know there are no consequences. So they're like, well, why should I go and do this when I know nothing's going to happen to them? Yeah. I think we've become very kind of insular and disconnected. And I think if if all of that stuff got better, if you kind of looked after each other a bit more, then you could drive that mentality out of people.
It's a very difficult one because, if you just decide overnight, right, we're going to get tough on crime and the consequences of crime, brilliant. But I'm also very aware that, good people can make stupid decisions sometimes. So And some people do just fall into a bad run of luck. They just make poor choices in life, or situations force them down certain paths where they have to do something. They have to, they have to nick something in order to get some money to put food on the table. That does still exist, sadly, in this day and age. There are other people that just don't give a shit, and they just make a livelihood out of doing stuff like that. But for those people that find themselves in that situation where generally they don't normally cross that line and they don't go down the illegal route or the criminal route, if they do end up down that line, the fact that they get nicked and chucked in a cell awaiting to go to court, that can have a huge impact on people's lives. And then if they also then get sent down for 2 years, like mandatory for theft of something, if we bring that sort of level of consequence in, that can be almost life-changing for those type of people. So it's a difficult one, because the shitbags really need to be dealt with. But then there's also people that just make stupid choices,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the shitbags may well have been just good people that made poor choices a long time ago, and now they've just continued down that path. Where do you draw that line?
I don't know. Difficult, I think.
Yeah.
But I think
social issue.
It's a wicked problem, isn't it? Where there's lots of facets to it, and actually there's not just one kind of black and white. We've become very kind of soundbitey these days, where you're like, do this. It's linear, and it's not linear. Things are complicated, and they're probably multifaceted, and you fix multiple things and it might get better.
Yeah. It's a social issue, isn't it? It's a complicated social issue with lots and lots and lots of contributing factors that will bring around that environment where people choose to do those things and then continue to do those things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't really know how you fix it, to be honest.
It's beyond me, I'm afraid. We just make things.
Yeah, exactly. You want to lop hands off of thieves, but then, as we said, people make daft decisions at times. So anyway, right. Okay. Yeah. That's for people paid a lot more than us to figure out. Second question from Ollie. Yeah. When you give him Bruce a discount code, I get asked this all the time.
We've I think Becca's got something ready for you. I can't remember.
Oh, awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Right, folks, I'll find out that. I've got the affiliate link, obviously, but I'll find out the code and I'll pop that. If you listen to the podcast, have a look at the show notes, and if you're watching the vid, look in the vid description.
Just to give a bit of context for that, we might be seen as being fairly mean, and I'm just going to explain that, because you didn't realize, Bruce, we're manufacturing here in Wales. Yeah. Everything we do is really expensive, and our technologies are really top notch, and it all costs a lot of money. We spend way more than any other lock company on locks, I reckon. Yeah. I've got quite a lot of experience now, so that's why we charge the right kind of price for it, and we back it up with the right kind of service as well. So, sorry, just a little explainer there. We're not just brutal kind of commercial beast. We actually, there are economics behind this, which we have to.
That's the reason I was so surprised to learn that, the extent of your manufacturing there in Wales and the UK is because I'm very aware of the difference in the cost of manufacturing items and products here in the UK with opposed to, say, China. The vast majority is done in China on bulk, isn't it? And then we all shout and roar about there's no manufacturing in the UK. That's because we'll all go and buy the same thing for a lot cheaper from China. So it's like, if you want to fly the UK flag, made in UK flag, there's a cost to that for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, there is. And we've identified the type of customer that we think is our ideal customer is somebody that likes all of these stories. The reason I'm telling you stories, partly because I've got lots of stories and I'm Welsh, so we like telling stories. But partly
be singing
because,
shouldn't you? Should be singing them.
Yeah, true. No, but partly because it's coming back to that authenticity thing again. Mm-hmm. We are authentic. We manufacture here. We think that people actually give a damn about this, because we certainly do, and we know that they do. Because we get people writing to us and saying, oh, I've just opened your lock and I'm so pleased that there's no plastic in the packaging, for example, or whatever it is, right? So yeah, I think that that's important for us. Is we're not operating on smash it through, make a massive profit on it. We're making the best possible. We're a premium brand, and we're trying to behave like it.
Integrity.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm a big one on that. That's something that, believe it or not, and a lot of people laugh at this, but it stuck with me 22 years ago when I walked through the doors at Hendon and, to join the Met. The first thing they told us in training school is integrity is non-negotiable, which is rich when you look at some of the stories that you get fed about the old Bill. But that stayed with me from then. And it's like, if you haven't got integrity in life in whatever you're doing, why would anyone apply any weight to anything you do or say if they don't believe you and they don't think you've got integrity about it? And that's all you've got, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, just try and do your best.
100%.
Just have integrity and try and do your best. What you can't do any more than that.
And if you make a mistake, own it, admit it. And as you said, somebody got through the first Moto, Liteloks Moto. Okay, you learnt from that. You go back to the drawing board and you come back with something that is better product at the end of the day. Bang, there you go.
Yeah. What's the expression? I think fail early, fail fast. Sorry, no. Yeah, something like that, isn't it? Yeah. I think that's a good one.
I know the expression. I know the expression. I don't think it is. I know the expression, but I can't think what it is.
Sorry, it's good. Yeah.
Somebody will be shouting at the screen now, won't
they? Yeah. But we do, when you're making locks, you are making things to fail. You've got to know that they fail and how they fail, and they've got to consistently fail, so you understand them, and then you make them better in the places that they need to make them better.
Yeah.
But some of them is it's just pure physics. A lot of it. There's certain sizes of lock are bolt croppable or not bolt croppable, and with the right materials, and that's why some of the people that do explain this stuff, there are various websites around that explain the size of things. I'm thinking particularly lock related ones. They're pretty accurate, to be honest.
I was just pre-reading the next question there. One from Jamie Newman. He says, baronium. I get it now. Very clever. Obviously, that flew over my head. There's me thinking it's something super special, some super special metal excavated from rare volcanic rock. Please tell us more if you can. Well, we've covered that, Jamie.
Well, I haven't said much about it, but I can tell you a little bit. It's a very hard particle suspended in a matrix. And it's kind of related to ceramics as well. So, but we've got to make something that can't be brittle. So it's got real balance of that performance stuff I was talking about earlier on. And the name, I know it's my name. It was I just came up with it and said it to to Will, actually, that I mentioned earlier, the chairman. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, that's great. Let's use that. I was just slightly tongue in cheek. And I went home and told my kids, who are now old enough to understand stuff like this. Well, more than old enough. And they were all like, oh my God. And I said, well, I'm going to leave you something.
Yeah.
The technology, which,
Well, it's great. It's great. No, I just didn't put two and two together, but yeah, now I know. It's like, no, that's quite
One
cool.
of our
like that.
key investors didn't. I was sitting on a train with him and I said something about Barron, and he went, I said, you know where this come from to you? And he went, no. And I was
the foothills of Java. Yeah,
exactly. Have a look at the, I can't remember it because I'm going to misquote it because I've just misquoted something else. But have a look at the Bikes and Beards video because there's a comment on there which is really entertaining about where Barron comes from. It's kind of a bit crude as well, but it's quite funny.
I'll check that out. I like crude. Next one, 2Bob Rocket. I have both the X1 and the Liteloks 1 Moto, and they're brilliant. I would have liked if the X1 shackle was slightly smaller in the diameter. It would be able to go through the Brembo brake mount, making it really difficult for thieves. My questions are: 1, where do you see the future of such product heading? And 2, will the technology ever apply to chain or the likes of the 1 Moto? Will the technology ever apply to chain or the likes of 1 Moto? What? Right, the Baronium.
I understand what he's saying. Yeah. Well, I'll answer the first one first. Making the shackle smaller there's polymer on the shackle. So I think John Milbank from Bennett's has got this thing about putting chains through D-locks, and he always cuts the end of the product off. And it's always a bit like, as a product creator, you're like, oh no, but actually I get it, because you want it, the important part, which is the security to interface, getting it through a particular brake disc. I come back to my previous comment about the physics and the size of things. We have to have things at a certain size. We could make bespoke brake disc locks, and that is possible. So I would say don't discount anything. Something can come along. We can, like I said at the beginning, we can apply our technology to pretty much anything. We just need to focus on doing what most people need.
Yeah.
The second question about, can you apply Baronium to things like the flexible locks? That's quite a complex question and quite a complex answer. And some of it comes down to technical difficulty, and the others comes down to financial issues of how much money would you be willing to spend on a product. I'd be more than happy for people to say what they'd be willing to spend on a flexible angle grinder resistant product. If they told me that might be quite helpful. That's all I'm going to say.
Leave them in the comments down below, folks. Yeah. Bob also says, where do you see the future of such products heading?
Yeah, thanks. I think what we're trying to do is create with our Baronium is create the armored category of locks, so that if you think if your lock isn't armored, then it's probably not good enough for the situations that you would use that kind of lock. So I think that is where it's heading, because that's the logical thing for us. I think you'll see more formats and more features in products, because we're doing the difficult stuff. I've often been asked, and I saw the questions from somebody else about electronics and alarms and all that kind of stuff. We've specifically stayed away from electronics in our business on purpose. It's my kind of strategy, really, because what we're trying to solve is physical security, and physical security needs physical locks. When things mature in the electronic side, which they are starting to do, then I think they can come in. So I think you can have electromechanical locks. There are plenty of those around already. But in my view, as a premium kind of brand, we'd want to make something absolutely bomb-proof, but foolproof in terms of the technology. So we weren't trying to solve the problem of having to carry a key. We were trying to solve the problem of having a bike net.
Yeah.
But I think things can start to develop, and I think there's a bit of we talk slightly tongue in cheek about a revolution in bike security in our first Kickstarter campaign. And I think that, there is a revolution in bike security. It didn't change much for a couple of decades. There's a lot happening now. And people are wary because tools have got better. People are now aware of the thing. So manufacturers like us will come up with ideas that will protect them. And but there is some basic economics and physics that limit the size of things, the weight of things, and the cost of things. And I think that there are various sources of innovation that are in all of those things, and they cross over in a kind of Venn diagram, if you like. And lots of things are possible, but not lots of things are commercial. So people like us are constantly battling, like, what's the right thing to do? You don't want to do vanity projects. It's like, made the most incredible lock, but nobody can afford it.
Yeah.
So you've got to do things that are affordable, easy to use. It's quite difficult, actually. What we're trying to do, we're balancing all of those things, aren't we?
And again, because you're made in Wales, you're made in the UK, there's that added cost factor, isn't there? You haven't got that.
No, but
there's extra budget, if you like, to.
That's true, but what we do have, which I think is an incredible superpower, is agility. So if let's say that everybody said, "Oh, your locks don't fit my disc brake, my brake disc," then we would change the locks, and we change them instantly. but very quickly. And so I think there is a flip side to that, which is really good. And I think that agility and listening to customers, much as I'm like one of those innovators that's like this, right? I do, believe it or not, listen to everybody, and I do take it all in. It might not appear that I do that, but I do. And so things like this are excellent. And so you want to know what people are doing. We actually have a survey on our website that goes out with the purchase, and we ask certain questions, and all that stuff comes back to us and helps us to try and make better products, or the right products for people. Yeah. Because you could easily just make stuff that's clever and nobody wants it. And you're going to know that pretty quickly because you're not going to sell any. Mm-hmm. But you need to know whether things work for people, you know. And because, like I said previously, we're trying to do our best, but inevitably some things are not going to be quite right for some people. And you've just got to work out what's going to work best for most people. At the moment, we're trying to focus on making enough product for they've created, because we really have created demand, because it's really high performance.
Yeah, gotcha. Next one is SB97. Neil Barron looks like Ryan Reynolds after a hard night on the tiles. Wow. Question: Picasso or Banksy?
Banksy all day for me. Yeah, although I did go to Picasso Museum many decades ago and was blown away by that. Yeah. But Banksy is just, I was telling somebody the other day, there was a Banksy that popped up in Port Talbot, which is up the road. And it was, did you know about this? It was on the side of a garage, like a concrete preformed garage. The guy that owned it was like, oh my God, I've got a Banksy. I took my kids to see it with my wife. We went really late at night, or not late at night, late in the day. So it was kind of dusk. Most amazing artwork to see. And he just put it there in Port Talbot, and it had this child with snowflakes apparently. And then when you turned round the side of the garage, you could see the chimney in the background from the steelworks in Port Talbot in the background. Yeah. So it was clearly kind of pollution as opposed to snow. Really clever, really lovely. And so, sorry, you touched a nerve there, a good nerve. So Banksy's amazing, I think. And what a great enigma. I love the enigma of somebody that, so you know, that the shredding painting. Oh. Like, I'm sure that was engineered to stop exactly where it did, because they all like, oh, it jammed and stuff. No, it didn't. That was absolutely meant to do it exactly as it did it. So I think part of the image was still there. So cool. Like, just, you know.
I remember in the old job, one of our posts was protecting David Miliband. And his house, his flat, was across the road from this pub. Just, you know, near, was it north of Regent's Park? Can't remember which part. Where's the zoo? Near London Zoo, anyways, where he used to be.
Oh, Regent's Park,
Regent's, yeah. And obviously it's 24 hours you stood there. And obviously all through the night, there's two coppers, armed coppers, stood on this guy's front door. And I think it was even my shift. But during the night, Banksy's got into the beer garden of the pub across the road from where we are, and he's done a Banksy in this beer garden whilst we're stood just chatting away. We didn't know anything about it. It was literally a couple of days later. They were like, the fucking Banksy was across the road from you lot, and you didn't even
you were
notice.
On duty.
Well, I didn't see it. But I think the landlord was so annoyed, he scrubbed it off. Everyone was just like, no, leave it. But I think he painted it or cleaned it off. Oh. But I think the Banksy was actually a painting of a copper as well. I think he painted us stood on the door.
Oh, those are good. Those are really good.
Yeah. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
Next one from Esby. Yeah, if price point wasn't an issue, what would you do differently to improve your product? Oh, that's interesting. Money, no object. If price point wasn't an issue, what would you do differently to improve your product?
Gosh, that's quite tricky to think of on my feet. But what do we do? That's, I mean, we position the particularly the X products to perform at different levels, so that you pay more money, you get more performance. So we're already kind of doing that. So I wouldn't say, you know, you'd put more technology or anything like that. Like all small businesses, if we have invested an awful lot. I've invested all of my life savings in this business, and we've had all kinds of things, people supporting us. But if we had money, no object in process, because I touched earlier on about that we develop process.
Yeah.
There are some processes that I would develop that would make things faster, that would be able to scale faster. Because the problem is, having great demand, you want more people to have the product, and that might also push the price down a little bit. And I never really wanted to be one that's sort of fleecing people, really. It's just that the things we do are mega expensive. The raw materials mega expensive.
Yeah. You want to provide value for money, don't you? But at the same extent, it's a business. You have to be making some sort of money from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And we do. And it won't be sustainable. And I now know what it all takes. I've been a CEO and a proper CEO for 10 years, where you're accountable for what you do. You've got a certain number of people you've got to look after. I see the responsibility of that. And the economics of things, I don't think people quite realize how much revenue you need to generate in order to make a business just sustainable. It's actually really hard. And being an innovator, like there are quite a few famous big and West Coast America businesses that just lose loads of money. Really famous brands that we all know that lose loads of money. And they do it by raising more and more money. And it becomes this, it's not a game, but it's almost it's a brand creation thing. We're not in that. We're a small business. We have to survive and we have to make things. So I think I would invest some more money in process to be able to get price down. And then we'd be able to do a few little things to the products as well. But I'll be honest, I'm pretty happy with the products as they're sitting at the moment. You're never satisfied with your own work, so you can always see things that could be improved. But I'm not looking at them going, oh, geez, we really could do better. We try really hard. The people in the business really care and they really try. And there's something, you often get things where particular flow of parts slows down or stops, and it's affecting things. And you can see people like genuinely there's sort of anguish, and you're like, there's nothing you can do about it. You've just got to just do your best, and just push through, and because it becomes not a machine, but it becomes more like a machine as it gets a bit bigger.
Yeah,
we're still tiny, by the way. We're tiny compared with all the known lock brands. We are tiny.
Esby's next question, I think, is a really good question. Biggest professional failure and what you learned from it?
Oh, God. Well, I think this would be things that you wouldn't see. So I've learned to not to overpromise and underdeliver. So and that's particularly in the financial side of things. So I've spent years with forecasts that are like, we're going to do this. And because I'm naturally optimistic, I've learned actually just don't do that. That's just a mistake, And so that's probably a failure. But I've got loads of failures. Everything I do has an element of failure, and I try to learn from it. Genuinely, because you look back and you think, well, let's not do it like that again. At one point, the reason, by the way, there's a few nice little nuggets in this to answer. It's a great question. X1 and X3 were launched on the same day, but weren't available at the same time. So X3 was available later, and I already touched on the thing behind me. I'll do that. It's like a mirror. The alloy is harder to make X3 than it is X1. There's more baronium. There's a lot more involved with integrating the alloy cylinder and stuff. And so I actually looked at the team and I thought, I'm going to kill them. I'm literally going to kill them if we try to. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and launch two products. Neither of them are going to go into manufacture properly. And everybody's going to go, Neil, what the hell are you doing? I actually learned from a previous overambitious kind of approach and went, right, one goes out as fast as possible. The other has to wait and it has to be on a back order, pre-order thing. And it was just necessity. What we had to do. You can't break your team, you know?
Yeah. I remember I got involved with a helmet manufacturer called Ruroc, and they launched their like Atlas 2.0 helmet. They sent the helmet to me, do you want, before it became publicly available, and try it all out. Thought it was a great lid, really good lid, very different in the physical design of it. It looked different to all the other sort of lids out there. Really quite striking, but it was quite loud, and there's a couple of other little points with it. But anyway, so when it came to a public launch, I'd done a couple of vids on it, and they did this sort of giveaway. I think they had three lids to give away through association with me on social media. So we did all that, and then when it launched, they just ran out of product. They hadn't stocked the shelves enough to cope with the demand, and all of a sudden, these people had won these helmets, and they were like, "Where's my lid?" And they were having to wait 4 or 5 months for the lid to turn up, and it was like, "Oh, jeez," you're like, "Oh God."
Yeah, I mean that is, yeah, I know, but I can sympathise from the other side and just think I can imagine what was going on there. We've had all kinds of things. We do get parts from other places. We've still got parts coming in from all over the place. We have things like, do you remember that ship that went sideways in the Suez Canal?
I think that was partly responsible for their supply issues as well.
Well, we don't have a finished product on any ship, but we have little bits. And you literally, if one part doesn't arrive and you can't make it in Wales because we've tried, for example, then you're stuffed. And you're literally going, well, but none of us at this size of business has enough money to actually buy the next few years worth of parts. You just can't do that. So you've got to manage your cash, and nobody sees any of that. They just go, "Where's my lock?"
Yeah.
Where's my lock? By the way, is a kind of catchphrase of almost the Kickstarter fallout of "Where's my lock?" And nobody wants a "Where's my lock?" moment, and we try our best not to get that. But people do need to wait for our products because we do make them for them. I don't think they believe that, but they do. We make their product for them.
But it also comes down to like communication, doesn't it, with the user end blah blah, the customers, end user. That's the one I'm looking for. Thank you. If you find yourself in that situation, then get it out on the socials and just go. Really sorry, we've had this issue. This is the reason why you're waiting a bit longer for your item because of this. Blah 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 blah. It's like being accountable, isn't it? It's just like
and like you said, it's integrity. Integrity, it's all that. Authenticity, it's all of that, isn't it?
Yeah. And almost like it's not your fault, is it? Because it's to do with supply chain and stuff. But sometimes you just have to go. You just have to swallow it, don't you? You just have to stand on the mound and go, "Yeah, my bag, my issue. Sorry about that. This is the reason it's all happened.
We're sorry. We're doing our best.
It's coming. Sorry about that." And for me as a customer, that's all you'd be a bit miffed that you're going to have to wait a bit longer, but at least you know why, don't you? It's not like I remember with hope I don't get sued, but I remember with Ruroc, customers were just left going, "Am I getting this?" People had paid for lids, and like, where is it? Is it coming? So I think they were quite. I think they've sorted all that, but it took them a long time, a couple of weeks for them to get that message out there to people. Last one of SB's favorite place to eat in NY. I'm assuming that in NY. I'm assuming that's New York. Have you even been to New York? I don't even know if you've been to New York.
I have, but it's been a while. I am actually going. I am actually going again. Favorite? I couldn't name a place. I mean, it's decades since I've been to New York, but I do. Just as a general thing, I do like my kind of brunchy kind of breakfasty things. So if there's a place, maybe somebody, but maybe somebody can recommend someone with really amazing coffee and really good brunchy kind of food. I've sort of steered clear now of the pancake stacks, although I still love them. Pancakes and maple syrup. It's probably the first time I had.
Aren't they?
But I'm more your sort of sourdough, poached eggs, all that kind of stuff nowadays, and I will. It's one little thing when I go to London that I will do, and I know you were talking earlier about motorcycle cafes. I know the places that do the best coffee that I found anyway, and the best brunchy things. And I'll try and just fit that in when I go there. So if somebody can recommend places in New York, it's going to be relevant because I'm going there in a few months.
Well, there you go. I don't remember the name of it, but I remember, must be 15 odd years ago, taking my son over there when he was wee, and we just went on walkabout one day. I had a mate that lived actually on Manhattan at the time. So we'd come off of Times Square and we were going down, I'm sure it was the main road where the museum, like New York, the big New York museum is at, the one from One Night in the Museum. It's that long road. And it wasn't too far from Times Square that we just found this diner. And we walked into the diner and it was like something out of Hollywood film. There were a couple of firemen sat at the counter. There was a couple of like NYPD coppers sat at the counter. It was almost like the Village People all sat up there, And I just remember it being that archetypal New York deli experience. Loved it. My boy's eyes were just beaming, the fireman, copper, the lady coming over. What would you like?
Fantastic.
Just loved it. And it was great food. Yeah.
So
really folks,
great.
If you can recommend anywhere in New York, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Last one from Patreon, David McCracken. Evening each. I have a Core 1 Moto and I really like it. Great product. I'm curious to know what Sold Secure Gold actually means. What tests did you have to do to achieve it? And do you have to recertify regularly to maintain the accreditation?
Okay, so we can't say exactly the tests because I think I touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
Because we're not supposed to. So we don't want to put out, or they don't want to put out their exact test, because then you'd be able to work out which products to attack with.
Gotcha.
Which tools. But it does include, I can say a couple of things that are nothing to do with Sold Secure. You can't, in any reasonable time, bulk crop any of our products. We use, got them over here, actually, 42-inch bulk croppers. How good are those?
Oh, yeah. God, they're beasts.
We have a very strong young engineer who is absolutely adept at putting the maximum force through those. Things like drills, things like other cutters, small cutters, lots of and things like hammers and chisels and free spray as well. So I've told you quite a few. Having said I can't tell you, but lots of things, and multiple tools, and it's got to survive a lot. And you will also often find that one feature in the design is just there for a particular tool. And we have to try and get all these things in play at the same time. What was the other part of the question?
Do you have to regularly recertify?
Oh, yeah. So the way it works with all of them, and they're all different, but Sold Secure, for example, there's an annual audit. So we test the original product and pass the test. We then every year submit products from production. They're tested again and accredited again. We pay and they get a certificate and so on. So it's a continuous process. And that is the same for most agencies. ART does it in a slightly different way, but very similar in a sense. And I think that, as I said to you earlier, it's a little bit like having kids again every year, because you're sort of sweaty palms thinking, is it okay?
Yeah.
But, it's really important that you test things all the time, because things can change. So materials can change, suppliers can change, your processes can change. So we do a lot of internal testing. We wouldn't put anything out to an external agency till we're happy that we know we've tested it. So we do lots of testing. It's quite weird because we're making things all the time and just breaking them. So, I was we'll talk about a part and we were like, has anybody got one of those? And it's like, no, we haven't. We've broken them. And I've got an office full of prototypes. I mean, I've got cupboards and boxes and like everything. It's a museum in waiting, right? One day I will get it all organized properly. I mean, it's all in nice little trays and boxes and stuff. But I'll get it sort of almost like the story of, because you wouldn't believe what goes into developing this kind of product. It's more
I bet that would actually be.
Nice.
that would make really interesting content to see the evolution of the different locks and the component parts. And
yeah.
But obviously, you don't want to give too much away to competitors either, do you?
But we make all of the lock parts in 3D printing in plastics to start with. When we've got a concept, we make models and we try things out, and we constantly make them before they get anywhere near metals and alloys and stuff.
Yeah.
So all those models are all existing somewhere. I keep every single important Sole Secure and other test agency products that have been tested. So they're all labeled, so we know exactly when they went in, and they're mangled. We set fire to products and stuff. We do all kinds of stuff you wouldn't believe. It's really cool. We did that in our old building, and we ended up with a fire brigade coming. And I thought I was going to get an absolute bollocking. And they just wanted to know about the bike locks. And they were oh my God, you've invented these. And they were like, oh, we've got bikes. Come on, show us. I was like, I'm going to get a bill from the fire brigade for a call out.
They just wanted freebies. Yeah.
And it's because we had a blowtorch test going for a video that we were making in the underground car park. We also got Pritch, who's a slightly very reformed kind of crazy Welsh bloke who used to be on
Pritchard. Jackass.
Yeah.
Not Jackass.
Dirty Sanchez.
Dirty Sanchez. Yeah, he's been on here. I've had him on here.
Yeah, he's great, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a good lad.
We gave him all the tools and just went, have a go at this. And he made a film, one take, no script. He's so good at it.
Yeah.
But he did everything. He did freezing and all that. And his commentary, it's on YouTube. Have a look.
He's a good boy.
So good. He turned up with his spaniel, Lemmy.
He goes everywhere with him, doesn't he, Lemmy?
Yeah.
Really interesting guy. As you said, a complete reformed character, isn't he? He's vegan, like an ultra endurance athlete now. And wow. Yeah, totally changed his life.
He's a chef. And he's got multiple businesses. And he's really, it's funny walking along with him because this is a few years ago. We're still completely unknown, obviously. But people would be going, Rich, it's just shouting out in the street in Swansea at him. He's awesome. Really famous in Wales. I mean, skater, absolutely amazing skater. I saw a clip the other day of him on TV, and he apparently refused to talk. He was really young, 16, 17. And they did this, was it You Bet or something like that? And they did, he stuck it on his socials, so I saw it on there. But they did this, 10 goes round these ramps in a 2 minutes or something.
You bet. Wow.
But yeah.
Forgot all about that.
I couldn't have done any of that at any age. I wish I could.
Mate, that's all of the clan questions. There's still a couple over on Instagram and Facebook. Are you okay for time? So I appreciate I've had you here for 2.5 hours. Do you need a toilet break at all? Are you okay?
I'm all right. I might grab a drink if that's all right.
Feel free. Suitably hydrated, rehydrated?
Yeah, I just bolted a chocolate bar. We've got a tuck shop downstairs and I'd never used it. And I was like, oh, chocolate bar. Brilliant.
I'm normally, because I normally have like a can of beer or sometimes two when I normally do these Thursday or Friday nights. So I've normally had a couple of beers. This finishes and I'm downstairs at like 9:30 at night and you're like, I'm hungry now. It's like, oh no, what happens after you've had a few beers? It's like pizza.
You just lose.
Oh no, don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, exactly. My wife's learned, so she normally just, whatever she's made for dinner, she just leaves a portion out waiting for me.
Very good, very good.
But she's away at the moment. I'm home alone, so oh god.
Oh dear.
Right, okay, folks, we're back. I've just had a look at Instagram, so that's at TeapotOne Insta on Instagram. Again, I'll leave all of Liteloks Socials in the description down below, so make sure you check that out, give them a follow. I think a lot of this stuff we've actually already covered, Neil. There's one here from Motor MA77. What do you believe is the next step in motorcycle security? Well, we kind of we spoke about that, didn't we? Like, what are the plans?
So yeah.
What else do we have? I think we did, didn't we? You kind of said that you're quite happy with what you have at the moment. You spoke about adding electronics into locks and things like that. So that's something to look at in the future.
I mean, I think everything will always keep evolving, and but I think we've made some big steps forward. So I think I'd expect to see us, certainly us, build off from where we are, not kind of completely take another direction again. Because what I'm proud of is we've got a suite of products that now, hopefully when we explain them well to people can understand what they need for what situation, what bike and whatever. And then we'll just keep kind of tweaking that, I think. But I suppose there may be a time when, we have more systems. So things, you were talking earlier about how do they work together, and somebody had a question about whether one fits the other and all this kind of stuff. And, it all might sound really simple to do that, but actually when you've got a manufacturing machine that's going, you've got to make all those changes at the right time and introduce things that make sense. So we have quite a planned pipeline of things, but I just can't tell you what they are.
And it was interesting to hear what you're saying about you're going to be offering bundles, because I mentioned couldn't get the Moto around, say, the barrier and my bike. Well, there's ways around that. So that would be interesting to see.
Those seem to really resonate with people. I think it's because we've also named them to help them and people understand what they're for. So there's a touring bundle, for example.
Gotcha.
A city bundle or an urban bundle, and those kind of things. So you're starting to help people, because I think it's kind of bewildering. We know that the behavior is people see brands, they hear reviews, they think, oh, that sounds good. What do I need? You know what it's like. You buy something and it's like, oh, it doesn't fit, or whatever it is. So I think that all that stuff will get better. But you'll see all kinds of stuff, I think, in the next few years.
There's a question here for Noodles for Breakfast. He said, is the reason why you haven't integrated alarm systems into the products yet? And is that something you're looking at doing?
Well, that was the one I touched on earlier. So the electronics for us has taken a back seat because it's not the primary thing we're trying to solve. But if we think there's a demand and there's if something's missing, then we would consider it. I suppose our focus has been on stopping the thief. And of course, an alarm can stop the thief. We're involved with lots of organizations like Secure by Design, for example, which, as you know, the police recommend products, but where there's all kinds of companies involved in that motorcycle crime research group that I mentioned earlier, that meets, and there's people from data tag and company, all kinds of different things. So most people talk about layered security, and I guess an alarm is another layer. I think we've now got a brand that's like reaching people. So you may see us diversifying a little bit, but I don't want to become one of those things that it just pumps things through, because that's not what we're about, right? That's not we would only do stuff that people needed or asked for. So
there's no point.
So we would consider anything. Pardon?
Sorry, there was your audio was in and out there. Sorry.
Oh no.
Yeah, with an alarm, there'd be no point in having an alarm on a lock that a thief knows they can get through in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, would there? Because all you're going to have is the alarm screeching when you come back to it and no bike sat there. So, you've established yourselves with the reputation for the brand of the lock that actually does the job. So, as you said, anything else is going to build on that now.
Exactly. It's pretty straightforward in a way. And we know we're set out to do the lightest sort of appropriate performance of security that we can do. And so, like you said, we can sort of develop it from there. But I don't think we wouldn't want to do gimmicky stuff, know.
Almost cheapens the brand, doesn't it? When you start doing stuff like that, it's like, you've got a premium product.
And plus, you don't want to start getting into, the customer service of some widget that, you end up absolutely flooded with questions about how to something keeps not working or something. And you're just like, we make locks, let's be really straightforward about this. I've read this multiple times, and people give this kind of advice about, actually, I can reference it back to somebody who's not that far away from here. There's a guy called David Hyatt that runs Hyatt Denim that make jeans in Cardigan Bay in Wales. He actually is the founder as well, originally, of Howie's. So we talk about Pritch, skatewear in the sort of 90s. They sold it. Anyway, he's got this big thing where he just says, do one thing well. I love that. I absolutely love it. They've got a lovely, lovely brand. Do one thing well. That's what we're trying to do. I've credited him, so I'm going to pinch that for a minute.
It makes sense, though, doesn't it? That 100% makes sense. Almost stay in your lane, like be the expert in your field. Yeah, absolutely.
Because as soon as you start getting overambitious and spreading it, you're going to lose focus on the bit that you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Last one on Instagram, Sean P. Cooper. Do they do Liteloks 1 in KTM orange? Well, Sean, if you look over Neil's shoulder, you can see an orange one right there.
That is actually a core, though, unfortunately.
Was that not? Sorry.
This is weird, the kind of mirror thing on Zoom. That is orange, but it's core.
Core. Do you do the one?
But we don't. We do it in red and black. So he needs to step up to a core, unfortunately, if he wants orange. I can feel his pain because I have a KTM.
Oh, have you? What one you got? Oh,
that's
you've got
the Duke. Yeah, the old.
Duke. Yeah, we spoke about it at the start.
Of course. Yeah. It's not a bright orange one by any means, but it's an old school one.
Right, that's the questions on Instagram, and I'll pop across to Facebook now. There was an interesting one here. Yeah, Peter Brewer. Do you know Litelok is not listed in the security device on insurance websites? And if yes, why? I noticed this when I was looking at insurance.
So this is a bit of a, I'm going to say battle, but that might be overstating it, but we've been having for a while. It is apparently listed. So the products are listed. But there's a system backing up the insurance companies called Polaris. And we've been talking to John Milbank at Bennett's about this because he, as part of that group, the Motorcycle Crime Research Group, he's been landed with trying to get somewhere with it, and he's doing his best. I understand that we're in that system, but not many insurance companies have updated the Polaris that they use behind their brokers or behind their underwriters. Yeah. So it's a bit of a weird one. We absolutely are only interested in making insurance-rated locks. So we should be on there, and we're clearly making amazing locks. So very frustrating from our end. We keep trying. I don't know what we can do, but maybe we can.
It is amazing how long it takes the insurance industry to update their systems, because when I got the new GS, for example, it wasn't listed. It's been launched, it's now available to buy. I was picking mine up in like a week's time, and none of the insurance databases had the 1300 GS on their systems yet. And even going into the new year, a lot of them didn't have it yet, and you're like, this is ridiculous. And I remember I checked.
I see the numbers. It was the best-selling bike in that quarter by miles.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
Not sure if I'm allowed to share that, but I have.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great bike. What can I say?
Yeah. No, really, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was looking for insurance quotes for that bike, and I've always, for about the last 3 or 4 years, I've gone with Moto. Like, I'd pay for my insurance. They were a channel sponsor years ago, but I'd pay my own insurance now. And Moto have always come through with the best quote, so I've stayed with them. But I've no affiliation, nothing like that. But I remember looking on their security devices, and I couldn't see Litelook on it. And then this question came up.
It's really frustrating, because you should be getting, some kind of benefit from using amazing security. So we've been approached, certainly not in the motorcycle area, but in the bike area, by several insurance companies wanting to do something with us, because obviously it's going to lower their risk.
Is there any way, as the end consumer, the way us as a customer, is there anything we can do to assist your companies like yourselves to perhaps put the pressure on the insurance companies to make sure their databases are up to date? Is there anything?
We can take a little clip out of this and send it round, and if people comment down below, and see what the groundswell is. It's a frustration that we've got. We don't understand why it can't just be sorted, and we've had, and nor does John either, John Milbank. So it's I'm happy to lead a bit of a charge with it.
Sure, it's a win-win almost for everybody, because if the best security device on the market is available in the insurance drop-down list, and it gives you a good discount, it's gonna make you go out and buy that product, which is then gonna make your bike more secure, which lowers the risk for the insurance company. So apart from the end user who's having to spend money to get this stuff, everyone's a winner there, surely. So it makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Come on, insurance companies, pull your finger. So, Let's go.
Yeah.
Right. That's we've done our bit there. Excellent. What else do we have? I think that is us, mate. And that will be almost 3 hours by the time we're done. We've I think that's it. There's a lot of people just saying they've got the various different locks and they love them. There's good feedback on Facebook I'm looking at, especially, and there's some over on Instagram as well.
Well, thanks to everyone for their support as well. We've stopped doing so many shows now, but the shows we've done, I always go on stand, things like Motorcycle Live and things like that. And you guys get great conversations with enthusiasts, but motorcyclists are so enthusiastic about stuff. I love it. It's brilliant. You can just have conversations about really banal little details, which actually are really important to people, and they're important to me as well. So it's a pleasure.
And it must be good feedback for you as well, because surely when you have that volume of people coming up and saying, you know, I've used your product for this and that, they will at times touch on things maybe that you hadn't thought about in R&D, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought it could be used like that.
Constantly. Constantly. People come and go, why don't you do this? Or have you thought about this? Or have you seen this? And like I said earlier, we will try and listen as much as we can. We can't feed everything in. But we try and, we will always listen to everything that's said to us. It's helpful. And I do think, though, motorcyclists are interesting, and cyclists as well, because the machines are so kind of, say, basic, because I don't mean that in an insulting way, because I was saying earlier on how sophisticated they are, but they're people understand their machine, right? So they know they might know how to, change a sprocket or do whatever they do with their bike. So therefore, they're so engaged with it. They're like us. We're constantly looking at our products and thinking about the essence of what it does and so on. And that's what they're doing. So if they're going, well, actually, if you did this or you just moved this a bit, we had this recently with a photographer who was trying to photograph one of our a new mount that we're going to release, and he said, well, why don't you do this? And it's something that we thought of, but we didn't quite follow it through. And we're like, well, actually, it's a really good point. So guess what? We just done it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, who says it. If we think it's a good idea, and we've got a way of, we've still got to execute it. But we will listen, and we don't want to crowdsource our business, but completely, as in you can't just go, look what you want, because people don't know what they want until they see it.
Yeah. True.
But we can listen to things and improvements and evolution and so on. I think you have to do that.
Awesome. So where do people go if they want to buy one of the products? Where do they go?
So the only place they can go is litelok.com. Is our website. So we've now pulled back from every other channel because we've got such demand. We are effectively controlling it and controlling our customer relationship through the website. So that's selling in all over the world. But that's the place to go. It's all happening there. And we've actually just refreshed it. So I hope people will like it. We've just made there's another Neil actually that runs digital. Neil has done a great job on lifting the usability. So a lot of people looking at things on phones these days, it's flipped over the time of the business. So we've made that mobile interaction hopefully a bit better, just constant improvement. And we've got new photography and all kinds of stuff in there. Like I mentioned, the animation. We've also got a new video on the top of the homepage. So some kind of nice things that have been sort of nagging at us that we wanted to change. And we've spent the kind of winter period getting some of this stuff done. And for me, I'm involved with all of it, as you can imagine. And I love getting stuff through when people are doing stuff with you and you're collaborating and you get a new version of a film or something and it's good. It's so exciting. I absolutely love it. So have a look at there's some video on the top of the homepage that's just close up. It's a combo film of X1 and X3 on black. And we did the original one as an animation from 3D modeling as renders. And that's lasted us a long time, but we've now done it in the real products. So there's no CGI or anything. It doesn't look like it. It looks real, but it's really beautifully done by a photographer who I've worked with for years and years in Cardiff. And I didn't even know they could do video like that. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, check that out, folks. If you want to use the product, make sure you do. Check out the links down below because there'll be a code there to get you a little bit of money off too. Thank you very much for that discount code. Obviously, there's going to be socials as well. I'll leave the links for all the Liteloks socials down below, so make sure you give them a like, a follow, a share, all the rest of it. Neil, before we go, floor's yours. If there's any sort of shout outs you want to give, is there anything you want to say, please feel free.
Quick shout out I was going to make to M&P. I know you had Mike on recently. Mike's helped us with some content recently. They're also lending me a shotgun 650 Royal Enfield for the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride.
Nice.
I'm riding out with the guys in Llanelli this time. So I did Cardiff last time. And there's a place called Unit 7, which is one of those coffee places I was talking about. It's really cool, run by a guy called Dan, and that's where it starts on this week on Sunday. So that's the shout out, really. M&P's Unit 7, Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. Anybody's going, enjoy, good luck, well done. It's one of those things you were talking at the beginning about excuses to ride. For me, this is like 60 people in Llanelli, all getting together on bikes, riding out to the countryside. I'm really looking forward to it. It's nice. Really cool.
Yeah. Looks a good event. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on, Neil. It's been great to chat with you. I'm sorry it took a little bit of time to get this organised. Folks, we did actually have a date organised previously, but
I was ill. I couldn't stop coughing, so I wouldn't be able to talk to you at all. I was coughing. I'm still coughing a little bit, but it's been a pleasure. Thanks again to all the Liteloks team in the background here, and thank you to you for a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, genuinely, I've really enjoyed it. It's been great to hear about you and about the company, really, the name behind, the people behind Liteloks and the products. Awesome. Folks, what else can I say other than I hope you've enjoyed this one. Keep doing your thing. Keep getting on out there whenever you can. Look after those that you love, but live your life. Ooh-ha.